Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
The internet is full of half-truths and all-out lies. We've all seen them, and many people on social media complaining about it. Here's your chance to show and prove. WorldAfropedia.com is a black-owned and operated encyclopedia. There are several thousand articles, but we need help. We can't uncover all the truth ourselves. So please, join us and become a writer, editor, or blogger for WorldAfropedia.com today. Every little bit counts. We owe it to the future generations to put the truth out there. Visit worldafropedia.com, the African-centered encyclopedia, a global database of African knowledge for the purpose of bringing about global African wisdom and understanding. worldafropedia.com.
Race and our perceptions of it affects what happens in the workplace. NPR, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health conducted a poll, and most African Americans who participated said they had experienced discrimination at work, in hiring, in pay, and in getting promotions. NPR's Sonari Glinton looked into that, and he found that when faced with those obstacles, many people choose to get out and strike out on their own.
It's an October heat wave in Los Angeles, and Dennis Jackson is making the best of it selling solar panels. Jackson has essentially always been an entrepreneur. He started in landscaping and moved to solar panel installation.
Both careers that I chose, landscape and solar, is not many black people in the industry. There's some black guys that are landscapers, and we look at each other as unicorns because there's not many of us.
Jackson is 40. He moved to L.A. in his teens from Detroit. Now, there have only been a few brief times when he's had a boss.
When I first started, I did have a boss, and I didn't like having a boss. It's harder this way.
Jackson has a very small operation, 5 employees and some independent contractors. And in many ways, he says he's always had the entrepreneurial spirit. It's his way of avoiding the glass ceiling.
So a piece of me says, yeah, I'm not going to have to go through that because I'm going to write my own ticket. I'm going to write my own ticket to not have to face discrimination.
NPR and Harvard have published a survey that says 56% of African Americans say they've been discriminated against in the workplace. Now, this is when they're being considered for promotion, applying for jobs, and raises. Mark Morial heads the National Urban League, and he says discrimination can deter African Americans from applying for certain jobs.
I'm not going over there to apply for a job because I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to go over there and apply for a job because I heard they don't like blacks. I'm not going to go over there and apply for a job because, after all, I've applied for 5 jobs in the last 2 months and I haven't gotten one of them. There's a lot of that goes on in the real world, particularly among younger workers.
Now, the unemployment picture for black men has improved significantly since the Great Recession. But Mark Morial says what's hidden in these low jobless numbers is that many black men have simply fallen out of the workforce. Now, there's a whole menu of problems that lead to giving up. Race affects networking, education, mobility.
First thing is the issue isn't really perception, it's reality.
Stephen Pitts studies labor at UC Berkeley, and his expertise is employment in black men. Pitts says there's real evidence of discrimination against African American men in the workplace. And in response, black men especially look for alternatives outside of the traditional job market.
It could be simply the hustling, right? Where I need somebody to fix my car, and I call a friend of mine to fix my car, right? Or someone's painting my house, or those sort of things. So the informal economy is not so much just the idea of on the corner drug stuff. It's a vast array of economic activity that simply isn't governed by traditional labor laws.
Pitt says many black men face real barriers, whether it's a criminal record or the need for a license to get a particular job. But there's been a shift overall, including for white workers. The idea of getting one job and working for 35 years is a thing of the past for almost everyone.
For the last 30 years or so, we've seen a rise in informal economic activity, and we see a rise in kind of the shift in labor market activities away from an old model to a newer model.
Pitt says the hustle, which has been vital to the survival of black men for centuries, this is a shift the nation is going to have to embrace eventually. Sonari Glenton, NPR News, Culver City.
Black brother to hell.
And we are reporting on news from inside the NPR newsroom today. Our top editor, NPR Senior Vice President of News, Mike Oreskes, has resigned following accusations of sexual harassment. 3 women have filed complaints. One, a current NPR reporter. The other 2 alleging harassment from 2 decades ago when Oreskes was at the New York Times. Mike put out a statement this afternoon saying, quote, "I am deeply sorry to the people I hurt. My behavior was wrong and inexcusable, and I accept full responsibility," end quote. NPR CEO Jarl Mohn says he asked for Oreskes' resignation this morning, and Jarl joins me now in the studio. Hi there.
Hi, Mary Louise.
When did you first learn of an allegation of sexual harassment in connection with Mike Oreskes?
Well, the first situation was the one you just referred to, was the, I guess, in the fall of 15.
So just to be clear, nothing had come to your attention, no allegations at the point when you hired him in the spring of 2015? You knew nothing?
None.
There have been a lot of questions about the timeline of when NPR knew what. So what I'd love to do is start there and just tick through my understanding of events as they unfolded, and please jump in and stop me if this is something that doesn't square with events as you understand them. So in 2015, NPR staffer Rebecca Hersher alleged that Oreskes made her deeply uncomfortable at a 3-hour dinner, that he asked personal and invasive questions. She complained, and Oreskes was reprimanded that same year, 2015. Correct?
That's correct.
A year later, October 2016, NPR learned about a woman complaining of harassment by Oreskes at the New York Times nearly 2 decades ago. This complaint involved physical contact. She says he kissed her, he forced his tongue into her mouth. Correct?
Well, that's what we heard, and that would have been, I think, in the fall of 16. Yes.
Fall of 16. And then last month, a second woman complained of Oreskes' behavior during his time at the New York Times, a similar complaint that he kissed her without having been invited to do so.
Correct.
If that is the sequence, if you knew of these multiple allegations, did it cross your mind that leaving Mike in his job might put other women, might put our colleagues at risk?
Yes. Well, let's look at those 3 examples that you gave, Mary Louise. The first, which occurred in the fall of 15, that was an internal situation that happened here. It was a terrible situation. I condemn his actions. They were unacceptable. They're deplorable. We investigated. We did it immediately. We involved our HR department. We involved our general counsel. We sat with Mike. We confronted him about that situation and put him on notice that this could not occur. My understanding is, and again it was reported here, David Falkenflik reported yesterday, that employee felt that we satisfactorily addressed that issue. And there's a whole range. There's a whole range of what is unacceptable behavior.
That issue you knew about.
Yes.
When a year later a second allegation came in.
You're referring to the New York Times.
Yes. From his tenure at the New York Times.
Again, the important distinction here is, first, that did not happen at NPR. It was not an NPR employee. It was at the New York Times, and it occurred 20 years ago. Had that happened at NPR, we would have had a very different reaction to it. It happened 20 years earlier. One of the things we wanted to do as a result of that is make sure that did not happen here. And I will tell you, up to this moment, sitting here and talking with you, Mary Louise, I'm not aware of anything that he's done or that happened that bears any resemblance to those issues that occurred 20 years ago while he was at the New York Times.
Our media correspondent, David Falkenflik, has talked to 5 more women since last night, on top of the 3 cases that we've already discussed. 5 more women alleging inappropriate conduct by Oreskes over a period of years. Has any other claim reached your office?
I would say as a result of the published reports within the past 24 hours, we have heard of one other that has surfaced. I would say when the second New York Times story
the second woman who dealt with Oreskes in his time at the...
We felt very strongly that we needed to... there had been rumors circulating around the building here about his behavior. Rumors and gossip. We can't act on that. We have to act on facts. I put out an email, I put out a memo, a statement asking for anyone that has experienced or witnessed any of this behavior to please come forward. We laid out a whole array of ways that they could contact us. There must have been 7 or 8 ways in. Over that 2-week period of time, we got no complaints. No one stepped forward. Unfortunately, it took the published reports to have some things surface.
But when you say it took published reports for this to surface, we're a news organization.
Yeah.
There's a few hundred reporters out there. Why are we getting scooped by the Washington Post on this?
Why are we? You're talking about the New York Times story? Would we?
I'm talking about the Washington Post story, quoting 2 New York Times women, and I'll add to that. I learned that Mike Oreskes had resigned when I checked my phone in the line in the NPR canteen today. And the way I learned about it was via an AP news alert, Associated Press. Why did they know and we didn't?
Well, because that's not from us. We did not release it. We had a clear timeline of how we were going to release this information. While we were in our meeting planning how we were going to release that information, the AP got the story. I suspect Mike released his statement to the AP. It was not from us.
You said you can't act on rumors and gossip, but were you concerned that these accusations were creating a toxic environment in the newsroom?
Absolutely, of course. As bad as
should that not prompt action then?
Well, it did. Ultimately, we informally were asking questions. Clearly, we didn't do everything we could because it didn't result in the right answer. But to suggest we were not doing anything or we were not acting appropriately is not, or that we were doing nothing is false.
Let me push you again then on what did push you to act and put Mike on leave as of last night and then ask for his resignation this morning. The Washington Post published his story. He was put on leave within a couple of hours. Was that because new information came to light, came to you?
Yes.
But you can't elaborate on what that is.
I cannot.
A new case? A new allegation?
New case.
Internal?
Yes.
Current employee?
Yes.
May I ask the severity of the allegation?
Again, I
know, but you've talked about a range.
I understand, but I'm going to be lambasted for any specificity here. And again, I want to get to the confidentiality of the complaint. I would say on the range of Harvey Weinstein being on one extreme, and the other internal issue that the complaint that you referred to earlier.
Conversation that made a woman feel uncomfortable.
Yes, I would say it was clearly in that range.
In the uncomfortable conversation range.
Yes.
You're all moan. Our boss, NPR CEO, talking about the resignation today of our top editor, Mike Oreskes, following accusations of sexual harassment. You're all, thank you.
Thank you, Mary Louise.
Context of White Supremacy. Gus T Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Thursday, November 2nd, 2017. So, I have been told this is our weekly broadcast, Workplace Racism, sharing suggestions, things, strategies, tactics we can use to neutralize racist man, racist woman on the job. If we have any non-white listeners who have figured out these are specific things that you can do on the job so that you can be unmolested by whites in every sense of the word. You can do your job, get all of your raises, promotions, great office. If you need a transfer, days off, sick leave, whatever you need, you get it with no hassle. You do not get harassed. You don't get accused of not speaking, not being a team player, being aloof, too quiet. You don't get any of those accusations. Seems like you're going to be able to remain in your position, if not moving up, getting a better position with a better salary, more zeros on your check for as long as you intend to work. Anyone who has figured out how to do that, you should be one of the first to dial in with suggestions, because that is what we need. Constructive counter-racist tips to help non-white people get to that glorious position if you should find yourself there. Certainly, we always welcome folks if you have problems, if you're having a situation on the job and you would like counter-racist suggestions on maybe how you can proceed to try to resolve that problem without creating any new problems. The number to dial, 641-715-3640. The code 564-943#. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. Number again, 641-715-3640. The code 564-943#. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. If you do not want to call in, if you have concerns, if you think you have a voice that will stand out, or if you're just not able to call in, you can drop an email untiljustice@gmail.com, untiljustice@gmail.com, and I will share your content on the air. People already wrote in, so I have a list of content to share already. But if you have either thoughts on what people have to say during the broadcast, or if you have your own situation, as I said, untiljustice@gmail.com. Quickly, the two segments that you heard at the beginning. The first segment from NPR that was talking about the new reports about racism and the high number of black people talking about they experience quote unquote racial discrimination, and their chart that talked about the different ways that black people experience white supremacy, racism on the job was number one on the list, which should not be a surprise to anyone. For me, it just emphasized how we can have so much to say about scandal and quote unquote interracial relationships and a lot of other things that, yes, are indeed related to racism, white supremacy. But if all of us are saying, man, for 40 hours in a week, these whiteys are sticking it to me and I don't know what to do. If it is that much of a problem, there should be a lot more dialogue, resources, and constructive content, not just moaning and wailing, woe is me. The crackers are sticking it to me. But, really trying to think in a strategic counter-racist way, what are some of the typical things that are happening, ways that we are being terrorized, and then what are some of the things that we can do to try to mitigate some of this as best we can. One. Second thing from that same report, they talked about how a number of black people experience so much frustration in that environment that they end up just leaving. They could have picked a myriad of examples. The situation up in Connecticut, Omar Thornton from 2010, where he said they were being racist towards him and he ended up resorting to counter violence. Myriad of situations, even the shooting in Virginia not too long ago. I think that was about a year or so ago. It was a black male there as well. But I was reminded of the late grandsister, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. She used to say that all the time with nearly a half century of clinical experience working with traumatized black patients. She said, I know I have concluded tons of black people are not working. It's not because they're lazy. It's not because they're ignorant. It's not because they don't want to work. It's because of the system of white supremacy that they have been so terrorized that they can't take it anymore. Black mental health has been totally obliterated, just trying to go to work, to take care of yourself, and to do a good job. She had seen this with her patients. She used to say this all the time. Even could have put a sound clip of her saying that if I had invested the time to go back and find it before we went live. The second report that dealt with the sexual abuse, again, we have had so many people over the years, males and females, call in and talk about being sexually harassed in a myriad of different ways over the years. I would make sure, take advantage of this moment where there's so much attention on this and specific to the workplace, not just sexual harassment, but sexual harassment in the workplace. Take advantage, and I mean anything. If it's somebody saying something, hugging, touching, take advantage. I would bring this up And do we need a refresher course? You don't have to snitch on anybody. You don't have to report anyone. You don't have to call them out by name. Just do we need a report? And again, the suggestion about bringing this up in a group setting, meeting type thing where everyone can hear this and knows that this is something that you're concerned about and think that we should, be serious about making sure that no one is being harmed. Professional workplace, that's what we want. Also with that segment, you got sounds like an accused serial sexual predator in the workplace. All of these different females stepping forward to accuse this suspected white predator, and he still got to resign. What does a white person have to do to be fired? Like, I have seen black people be fired for far less. I have been fired for far less. I remember getting confused about the work schedule. They changed my schedule around and I was coming in at a different time. I missed my schedule and got fired. That has happened. I was not accused of sexually assaulting anyone. I didn't have people stepping forward with years of testimony and documented cases of me harassing and, doing all these really lewd and terrorist things. What does a white person have to do to be fired? Continuing. Actually, I'm going to read some of the emails that folks wrote in. I'm going to see if I can get at least a couple in before I get to the callers, and then I'll read the rest as we proceed. This actually, from last week, one of our callers in the great state of Wisconsin, black female, she wrote in, I just started a new job at a call center where there are mostly non-white black people. The few whites that work there that I have interacted with seem to be drawn to me. They appear to be helpful, but since I am practicing codification, I know better. Good job. I am suspicious of whites all the time. When talking to some other non-white black people at the workplace about an upcoming event at my home, a white female that I was in the training with asked if I would invite her to my home. Dun, dun, dun. I asked her, why would I do that? Staying in the question lane. She looked surprised and asked, you really would not invite me to your house? I asked her, if you saw me outside of this job, would you even look my way or speak to me? That would be 2 for 2, responding with a question. White woman admitted no, she wouldn't. But then told me she had, wait for it. Woo! She told me she had a black best friend. One of the black people I was talking to before asked whether or not I liked white people. There it goes again. I asked, did you hear her say that, wait a minute, did you hear me say that I don't like white people? 3 for 3. Question. They responded no and began to talk about how the white female was cool. I replied, she just admitted that outside of work, she would not look my way or speak to me. I feel the exact same way. So what is the difference? A few weeks later, the white female says that she is not going to be working there much longer. She said to me, I know you're not going to invite me to your house even though I'm leaving. I asked her again, why would I do that? She rolled her eyes. I was done. Bravo. You, in my view, made the state of Wisconsin proud. That is outstanding counter-racist work, in my opinion. One thing I advocate all the time, question. And it can be difficult sometimes, especially if you're not in the habit, right, of responding with a question. Particularly, sometimes it can be a little awkward questioning white people. Some of us, through years of terrorism, we have been forbidden sometimes from questioning white people, and especially in a workplace setting. But hey, we should be able to ask a question. So I always, always, always recommend, encourage, if you're on a job, being able to put things in the form of a question. That was huge, 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 huge technique from Mr. Fuller and saying, hey, this is something he had seen over years in terms of making a lot of statements and getting in trouble on the job. Making fewer statements, asking more questions can be a little bit more difficult to get in trouble when you ask questions. And all of this, everything that happened in this whole scenario, talking to another black person and the white person is ear hustling on your conversation, standard. We talk about that all the time. You just have to assume whites while you're on the job, whether it's electronic surveillance, whether it's them just standing in the area so that they can hear any little morsel of information about what you're doing and your personal life, anything that they can file away, figure out how they're going to use that against you when they will use that little bit of information. So you just have to be mindful of that, really on guard about what you're talking about, even if you're, talking to another black person, this is your friend or what have you, even then, just be alert. White people are going to be listening. And again, my suggestion, anything that you really do not want white people to know about on your job, I wouldn't bring it up at all. I wouldn't be talking about it on the phone with other coworkers, because they will just exactly what happened here. They will be listening in, sneaking around the corner to spy on you. I thought it was great when she tried to make the white woman racist, tried to make it all personal and, you don't like me and why don't you invite me to your residence and all of that. Asking questions. And then when the other victims, when they came to the defense of the white woman, that's something that you should not be surprised about. I would even say you should kind of expect that, because I've seen that. I've experienced that in other situations where other victims of racism, if it seems like you are not embracing a white person, like, whoa, you don't like white people? Are you racist? I have seen a lot of that. Other folks have experienced that who've dialed in. You do not want to take it out or make it so it becomes conflict between you, particularly in the workplace. You want to try and minimize conflict to the best that you can with everyone. Great job there as well. Just asking questions. She just said she wouldn't even acknowledge my presence if she were to, see me outside of the workplace. Did you hear her admit that just, seconds ago? Just asking that. And again, did you hear me? That's one I cannot emphasize enough. Take that extremely seriously. Anytime in a work environment, someone, asks or accuses or even jokes around with something like, you don't like white people, halt. Did you ever hear me say that? Okay, that's a real serious accusation. I would like that retracted. We want to be accurate. Let's not, just be throwing around false accusations and what have you. I have never said such a thing. I don't even know where you got that from. It sounds libelous to me, in fact. Real serious. You can figure out whatever you want to say, but I mean, immediately, that's not something to joke about. That's not something to minimize, particularly in this, climate, as they say. Moving forward, see if I can get in one other report, and then I'll get to callers. Black male. I'm serving the country currently as a federal officer that was given the opportunity to volunteer with FEMA for a short deployment post. First response, Hurricane Irma. I was in the field as a register for approximately 7 weeks, at which we assessed homes and individuals for grant or loan relief assistance. Before we could begin our assignment, each volunteer was to be trained for the assignment for approximately 5 to 7 days. During the training, volunteers are in waves from 200 to 400 people at a time. Actually, I'm going to save this one for later so that y'all can read it, because it's a little longer. So I'll get in some of the callers and then I'll read this one since it's a little longer. Hold that thought on that one. Pause. We'll come back and get the rest of this one later in the program. If folks have commentary that they would like to share, number again, 641-715-3640 and the code 564-943#. Press *6 if you would like to participate. We have folks who have commentary on how the situation in Wisconsin was handled when the white woman hopped in after being nosy. You know what? Why don't you invite me to your house? I'd like you to, be invited to your get together, whatever it is. In terms of how that situation was dealt with, and again, being accused of not liking white people on the job. If folks have any suggestion for that sort of thing, where other black people, are accusing you of this, if you have suggestions around that, that would be good. And other question I have, sometimes, or I'll phrase it this way, I think it would be extremely constructive each time we take a job to just be very clear and upfront, maybe even writing a sentence or two just in terms of why are we taking the job? Are we taking this job just to make money to take care of our family, meet our needs, what have you? Is this a job for career advancement? Is this a field, you're trying to make this a lifelong profession, so you're trying to gain expertise into that end? Why are you doing this? What is this for? What is the primary reason that you're doing this? Is this a job that you intend to have, or how long do you intend to have this job? Is this a job that you're taking just, for the next month until you can get something better? You got another offer that you're waiting for? Is this a job that you hope to have for the next 25 years, moving up in the company? Is this a job you just hope to have for a year or two until something else? Being very clear about what your objectives are when you take that job. And the question attached to all of that, at what point do you say, hey, I need to be looking for a new plantation? Not necessarily, or I guess it could be racism, right, if you're being mistreated. But as I stated before, racism, white supremacy is going to be present on any job, even if you are quote unquote self-employed. It's going to be present. So that in and of itself may or may not be a reason to relocate. But what would be reasons? What are some of the signs that, okay, maybe I need to be looking for a different plantation, new job? What should that process look like? What are some of the signs that you should be saying to yourself, hey, maybe I have been here long enough and I should be moving on? Because I think I'm bringing this up just because I think under the system of white supremacy, often victims of racism, we end up being in jobs that we did not intend to be on very long, and we end up being there for a long time, much longer than we intended, and even in a job that we acknowledge is not, healthy, not what we want at all. Just thinking about that and trying to, I think that can be a problem for us sometimes, and just staying in these environments way, way longer than we should. I'll put that out as well. Folks have comments, questions, folks who have a hand up, line should be open. Proceed.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Greetings, everyone. Before I forget the details, I don't know if you may have played it or not, about the 11 City of Miami firefighters / employees who were first suspended, and I think I saw it on last night's news that 6 of the 11 were fired. At the time, I was just reading it because I had the sound down at my attempted mother's residence. And I said to myself, not to myself, but also to my sister, that I bet that was racial. And the reason why I speculated it had some sort of racial circumstance is because so many people at one time was in some sort of employment trouble. And normally on that job, although that's not the same fire department I was on, that's the case. And I found out the day that was the case, involving of course, the victim was a black male. He was a officer, a lieutenant to be exact, And ironically speaking, out of the 6, they showed their photos. And one of them looked like a non-white black male. One of the quote unquote fired employees looked like a black male. And I can also see that happening by a black person being involved on the side of mistreatment. Did you hear anything about it, or did you play it? Because a little bit of it went national. I don't know for sure if you was able to play it.
Nope, I didn't play it. It looks like all of this is pretty recent. Within the last 24 hours or so, that this became a big national headline. So first that I'm hearing of it at all. I'm posting the report on my Facebook page now. The Washington Post did a big report on it within the last 24 hours. They did a big report with more of the details about the incident. It's titled 6 Miami Firefighters Hung Noose, Drew Phallic Renderings on Black Colleagues' Photos. If you want to get all of the, sorted details from the report, I won't read the whole thing. It says the firings are significant in that they play into a larger history of racist behavior in the department stretching back decades. The Herald reported Wednesday that the 6 firefighters, I won't read all the names, together defaced the family photos belonging to a black lieutenant, taking the pictures of his wife, children, and his mother out of their frames and drawing graphic and obscene phallic renderings on these images before returning them to their frames. One of the firefighters also created a noose from twine and placed it over the frames, the paper reported. I guess that would be the Delectable Negro. You could put the cowbell in for that one as well. I would also say some moron, I think, for a few years has been saying no personal items in the work area, no pictures, no photo albums, no bowls of chocolate. Some idiot has been saying that for a while and saying that is just going to be an invitation for racists to come and malinger at your desk and find something to molest or take or contaminate, or in this instance, take out all the pictures and draw penises and put a noose. So again, if you needed a reminder, maybe consider no trinkets, only having items that are necessary for you to carry out your work duties. But yes, this was the first I've heard of it. Great report.
All of those lessons, Gus, are in that story. I would say, as far as with somebody like me, and as long as I've been known on this particular program, it should be, business as usual. That is one of the prime type of jobs where you're going to have that type of behavior on a consistent basis. Why? Because the unique thing about it is that it's one of those jobs where you're not spending just 8 hours. You're spending 24 hours with people. And I'm talking about it certainly is a terror when you spend 24 hours with white people. You get a chance to see a lot of the habits that you probably wouldn't see on a 9-to-5 quote unquote type of job. And you can see their behavior. You can even see some of their personal behavior that they normally would do, because they would do a lot of the same things, in that light. Also, along with that, one thing that was very interesting was the reaction of the victim. Normally, a lot of times, we know non-white black people would have this forgiveness type of thought pattern in the report. Basically, not only did not have that, he also mentioned about the extensive, which probably brings up a question of why didn't he prevent himself from being harmed, like you mentioned with the stuff on his. It may have been in his bunk. I don't know for sure, because that's some of the places where you have those items. It may have been at a particular desk at the station, which it's kind of hard for me to figure that out, because at a fire station shifts change, and so it's the only place I can think where a person would have personal items would have to be in their private space bunk area, and even that's not yours, because in 24 hours somebody else would be sleeping in that same bed. As far as they're concerned, that's how it is in fire stations. But nevertheless, he mentioned about how extensive racism is at that particular station as well as with the fire department, period. So I kind of like the idea that he expressed that, as far as they're concerned, most so for the sake of non-white people listening to his report. And that's all I have to say right now. And I'll be, just listening in. And if I can say something that may be helpful to someone from my experiences, I will. Thank you.
Appreciate that, retired firefighter. I did post the Washington Post's article on this report, and they have links in it to the Miami Herald's report, so you can get more of the details. But this is the sort of thing that I would store and just regular. I was even thinking while reading this report and listening to retired firefighters' further explanation about this, you could probably check Noose on a regular basis. I've been saying I check the word N-word, nigger, just doing a news search to see, what pops up, because you get lots of workplace racism there, and whites doing what they do. You could probably put in Noose and get the same sort of results. I might, begin doing that from now on just to see how much information pops up. But yeah, if you're any sort of work situation where you're sharing sleeping quarters with whites, that probably would warrant a whole different chapter or book of counter-racism code in terms of what you would need to do to protect yourself as best you can, and what sort of items that you have on you and what have you. But again, just being alert, aware of the environment that we are in. And I too appreciate retired firefighters saying the victim, not having, I guess, a lot of, forgiveness, and it's all just, jokes, all just giggles, nothing that serious. We just need a little sensitivity training. I appreciate that as well. If we have other folks who have comments, if you have problems, your own situation, feel free. Folks have any comments on the situation from our listener in Wisconsin, how she dealt with the white woman asking for the invite to her residence or event, or if you have comments on how we know when, hey, I think it's time that we start looking for a better plantation, different and better job situation. If we have folks who have commentary, feel free.
Greetings, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Greetings to you, Gus, to all the callers and listeners, to the firefighter in Florida. Just great information and great assessment. I have to comment on the person who wrote in and how she dealt with her terroristic colleague. I thought it was brilliant. It was just a brilliant display of counter-racist logic and execution. I think it's a great example for people to listen to more than once, just so that they might be able to get a handle on how, because when you're dealing with white people in any conversation, there's a rhythm to the conversation. It's almost like a verbal dance. And that's how I took what you were reading. She was able to just execute flawlessly how to ask proper questions at the right moment, and how to use those questions to reverse racist attempts, and then sadly the attempt of a confused victim of white supremacy in trying to make her look a certain way just based on how her counter-racist logic was working. I thought it was just brilliant. I have no negative assessments whatsoever. Just made my week, actually. And one thing I wanted to tie into after the firefighter in Florida, because I found the story on BTR Community, and I think it is just flabbergasting, not because it's shocking to me, but it's just in a sense that any black people who especially are in college and have a white college roommate, this ties into just what the firefighter in Florida talked about, and it gets even deeper. So I'm just going to briefly read sections out of it. It's not too long. Former university, this is from the Hartford Courant, www.COURANT.com. Former University of Hartford student faces hate crime charge in case involving former roommate. So she said Brochu, 18, was arrested on Saturday after admitting to police that she licked her roommate's dining utensils and smeared bodily fluid on the woman's backpack. Then it says that the university president in the statement said that Brochu's conduct was reprehensible and that she is, quote, no longer a student at the University of Hartford. She will not be returning to this institution, unquote. And then they quoted her from her Instagram, and what she said was very, very telling. Here it is. Her Instagram was captioned, "Finally, I did it. Yo, girl got rid of her roommate. After 1.5 months of spitting in her coconut oil, putting moldy clam dip in her lotions, putting her toothbrush in places where the sun doesn't shine, and so much more, I can finally say goodbye to Jamaican Barbie," unquote. Brochu then told the police she began to lash out due to a quote-unquote hostile environment caused by the victim's rude behavior. This is what she's claiming. Not compromising and posting Snapchat videos of me sleeping and making fun of me snoring, unquote. She told police she requested a room change on October 11th, but was unsuccessful. She did admit she licked her former roommate's plate, fork, and spoon, smeared her own bodily fluid on the victim's backpack, but denied the other accusations she posted on Instagram. She told the police that, quote, anything else she bragged about on social media was a lie in an attempt to appear funny, unquote. I think that is more than enough to help people in college, going to college. You might be away at school, high school, and have these white roommates. These are the types of things you can expect from them. Do not get it confused a little bit that because they might, quote unquote, be nice to you, they might smile sweet towards you. You might have not had enough money to get breakfast at the cafeteria, and they went and maybe paid for it. Whatever they do for you to make you think that they are human beings, they are not. Don't let them fool you, because just what this white terroristic troll was doing, all of them do it in one form or another. Thank you. I'll mute my line.
Appreciate that, Roz. That report about the situation up in Connecticut, I did see that one. Went pretty viral. I had to stop people from posting about that event on my page because they were just posting the same link over and over again in their outrage and the horror of the whole event. But certainly I've said for years, the classroom for students, even before you get to the college level, that is work for students, and just another reminder of, the importance of being codified, understanding what it means to be white, in my opinion. And just, man, the levels of treachery throughout that whole situation. And even one of the things that stood out in there, the bragging about all of it, that's something we used to talk about on the broadcast quite a little bit. But we'll certainly have more to say about that this weekend. That was one I was very, very sure lots of folks were in the know and duly outraged about what took place with that situation as well. Other folks who dialed in with a hand up, if we've not heard from you at all, if you have commentary on workplace racism, line should be open. Proceed.
May I be heard?
Yes, sir.
All right. Greetings, callers. I had called in last month about having white people ask that you smile on the job. Mm-hmm. And I listened to the playback of the call, and I just want to say some advice I took was using the line that I don't like to smile too much. People might think I'm making too much money or something like that, just to kind of throw it off real quick. But Gus, you had posted a link to a show you guys did about white women on the job, since that's the type of people that normally would tell me, hey, smile. And I thought it was interesting listening to the Wisconsin caller's email about the white women questioning her and the advice from that show you posted, because one of the big things is not being caught alone with white women. And it made me think of my very first job in high school. I was working at a movie theater, and I was pretty much like an usher, so I was paired up with this white woman, not a woman, this white girl. She's real unattractive, and we had to clean the theaters. So she was assigned to do like the mop bucket. So we went into the utility room, and she went into the corner to fill up the mop bucket. And this is my mistake. As a teenager, I was horse playing, with her. So while she was filling the bucket up, I turned the light off. I'm at the door, so I'm nowhere near her. So I flicked the light off, flicked it on real quick. She started laughing. And I think I did it one more time. She laughed, joked, and, we left. We did our job, went home. And the whole time we're doing our job, no issue. We're getting along. Then I would say a couple of days later or the next week, my supervisor pulled me to the side and said, hey, you have a complaint. She said, I did something to her. She's really upset, and I'm going to need you to, sign this write-up. So, I'm like a teenager at the time. I signed the write-up, and that was it. But it was funny, the supervisor, he's white. We actually all had mutual friends where me and another high school buddy and his brother, we all used to hang out together. So I knew him outside of work. And it was kind of that what happens messed up. And it turned out the girl, she had a crush on the guy, but just being alone with a white woman and them accusing you led to me being written up. She's laughing and joking with me, but, she used it as, I guess, ammunition to get me written up. And that I have another story. My second job, when I was real young, I worked in a call center. And remember we had a male friend on my left, and I think this is a white girl on my right. And I don't think paid her too much attention. Me and the guy would just talk all the time. And it turned out, I can't even recall ever doing anything to this woman. She made a complaint about me too, that, I did something or said something to her. So I got written up for that. Now, the interesting thing about that one is that write-up prevented me from getting increased wage. So they were giving out raises at the time, and the supervisor, he cited the write-up, that I got as a reason why I couldn't get a better raise, even though I was doing so good on the job. So I just wanted to, I guess, put a testimony on how important it is not to be caught alone, especially as a male with white people on the job. And I mean, that's about it. I did have something else I wanted to add too. I was pretty much on vacation all last month, and when I came back to my job, I'm the one that works in the women's shoe department. I had a black male, he was just itching to tell me this situation that happened on the job. I guess it was a black guy and a white woman shopping, a tragic arrangement, and she had asked for some shoes. She picked the white sales associate, so he bought her the shoes and gave it to the boyfriend, the black boyfriend. So he was doing the work. He opened the box, and at this point, she said, "Can you help me out?" So the guy, he got on his knees, to put the shoes on the woman. And at that point, two black females had walked into this area while he was doing that, and they started laughing at him. So and the guy was saying, they were pretty much laughing at him and saying, "Hey, look at what he's doing." So the guy got so uncomfortable that he positioned his body while he was on his knees, put his back toward the black females who were, calling out this tragic arrangement. And that's all I got for the week.
I have no idea what that has to do with workplace racism, unless I missed the story. People do find ways of weaving in the cowbell all the time, find ways of weaving it in when it is not really related to workplace racism. That is grand to hear about the implementation, or I guess we'll have to see. I guess I'll retract that. It's grand. We'll have to see if you implement using some of the lines. I think it was suggested if people are accusing you of not smiling, of using a joke, kind of a quick one-liner. I don't smile. Catch me on payday. I'll smile a lot. That sort of thing, to give them a quick joke to try to diffuse it. If that's the route that you go, let us know if that works out. And thanks to Stacy in the UK, she should be with us today. I think that was her suggestion to revisit that broadcast that we did a few years back, where we were talking about white women specifically and how they practice racism on the jobs. And that was, I think, one of the topics that came up in that broadcast, white women making that accusation that black people don't smile enough, or a black male specifically doesn't smile enough in the workplace. Certainly that is something that we've talked about a lot over the years, having that code, making sure you do not get trapped, stuck with alone with a white woman. And I think we've also suggested the same, black females not being alone with white males for the same reason, and just being really mindful about that. And particularly with the climate now, you should be able to say, hey, and even if it's a male, just, hey, I would feel more comfortable, just to make sure we don't have any allegations or anything. That way, there's multiple witnesses, everybody's there, we can all be comfortable and go, do what we need to do. Because they even have that as a policy already in some workplaces, particularly if children are involved. They already have a sort of policy in place where it can never be like one male with one male, one female. If it's a younger female, it has to be multiple witnesses, that sort of thing, to kind of minimize the likelihood of something happening. But yeah, keep that in mind. If other folks dialed in, if they have suggestions, and that I definitely appreciate as well, reviewing your workplace history, because there are certainly things, knowing what we know now, we would not do. I would hope folks listening to this call, knowing what we know now, there would not be any horseplay with white colleagues ever, right? Like reflecting. That's something that I've said consistently. I think all of us, if you just look back on your work history, all of us will just see things like, oh man, I can't believe that I did that. And even in this instance, you can see like, oh man, doing that, and man, that messed me up at the time. I could have got a better raise, or, anything. As opposed to having to deal with all that stress and them telling me I'm messing up on the job, where she was just totally practicing racism and just lying and making up stuff. Just keeping that in mind, even for those of us who are older. You said that happened when you were younger. Even those of us who are older, who can be playful in the workplace, you do not want to be engaging in playing around, horsing around with white coworkers, even when they're just doing verbal stuff, that a lot of those times they can get you in doing some sort of joke, and we're just messing around, and then it will get racial. Well, wait a minute, I thought we were just messing around. We've been telling jokes and everything. We come in, we have a good time, we get our work together. This is not recess. This is not the bar. We are at work. Let's carry ourselves in a professional manner. I just say that as a form of counter-racist code. Being serious, being professional, that will, I think, minimize the likelihood of whites engaging in that sort of behavior, hopefully. Other folks that we haven't heard from, if you have commentary on what you've heard from listeners so far, or if you have your own situation you want to discuss, feel free.
May I be heard?
Red in Ohio.
Hello, and thank you for taking my call. Hello, everyone. Mine is going to be really quick because I still don't have I guess what you would call like a traditional job through, I'm assuming white people would, manage the company, what have you. Just referring back to, I think it was the retired firefighter, some of his commentary. It's about just like when to leave a job, or maybe it was a commentary after that. The reason why I left my job was because I felt like it was really damaging my health. I was constantly anxious, and there was nothing that I could do to stop the anxiety. Like when I would wake up, I have like a really rapid heartbeat, shortness of breath, just like the telltale symptoms of anxiety. And that's when I decided. And then also with the fact of, just the racism on the job, like the subtle racism, just from the stories that I had shared in the past where, I knew what I was doing, and there would be white women specifically who would be on the job or doing what I was doing for a lot less, who would have just new to that particular task, and what they had to say was more important than all the experience that I had. So that was, just different things like that, and, constantly having to work under supervisors who were ignorant, and it could have been willful, or it actually was. You if you're being trained and you still don't know how to effectively manage or help, or even, I guess, maybe under their terms, maybe managing just meant that, the Negroes stayed in their place and stayed in line. So not to, try to change too many things that the upper management didn't like. So that's the main reason why I left. And then the other thing, I had 3 things that I think I forgot. But what I decided to do, I'm actually going to conduct an experiment since I am applying for jobs. I have my first name. It's not a English or a white sounding name. I know that might be. I know that metaphors don't really matter on this show, but it's not like a Samantha or something like that. So what I'm going to do is when I apply and when I continue to apply is to use on some jobs my real name, and then like some people, they'll have like their first name as just the first initial, and then they might use their middle name because my middle name sounds a little bit more white. And so I'm going to try to do that, and then I'll keep everyone updated on if I feel like that might actually help me to get a job quicker, because I have read reports in the past where, they said, well, applicants, if you have if you live in a certain area, or if you have a non-white name, then that could actually hinder your callback ability. And I've also moved as well. So, all right. Well, thank you for allowing me to share.
Outstanding. Conducting counter-racist experiments. Love to hear that. Let us know. Yolanda Spivey, she was a guest on the program, black female. She did that experiment and she got 0, like no results. She sent out her resume with her quote-unquote black-sounding name and info, and then she did the same resume with all the same credentials and everything, just with her white-sounding name, and she was avalanched with responses. She was a guest on the program a few years back and talked about her own experiment in that vein. But let us know how it goes, and certainly that right there, Dr. Welsing talked about that. I think that's what they were getting at in that NPR report. Having black people in these jobs where you are working under white people who do not have the same credentials, who are not competent, seems that they daily bask in demonstrating their incompetence, which is causing you more problems. And in many instances, that's what ends up happening. Black people have to pick up the slack, as they say, and have to do more work, and they're not being compensated for it. That alone can be enough to, at minimum, to drive down your motivation for wanting to do a good job, since you're not getting compensated, treated, in a manner that's equal to what you could do. You could be a competent person that could have that position that this, in your case, that this white woman is in, but that's not, what this is about. We don't want to go that direction. Other folks, if you dialed in, appreciate that, Red. Other folks who dialed in, if you have a hand up, if you have your own situation that you want to discuss, 641-715-3640 and the code 564-943#. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. If you have comments on what we've heard from listeners thus far, feel free to share in that regard as well.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I guess this is Northeast Victim, and greeting to everyone. Just to give you a quick update, guess I was the one that sent you the email of the email that went to the school, or from the supposedly hacked by supposedly student that hacked someone else's, another teacher's email account and sent an email, racist email out to a black teacher mentioning another black teacher, and then it also was copied to all other faculty and students. And so that email was very, very racist in content. And just as an update, so I've been emailing back and forth with the principal to try to get some resolve or try to get something going, and conversations or some type of update to the parents. And as a result, so far, the principal has organized a community forum that's going to take place on next week, Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it, but I did ask in the email to her. I said, well, I'm not going to be able to make it, but is there going to be minutes or something going to be taken? And she responded saying, yep, minutes are going to be taken. It's going to be distributed to the faculty and parents as well. And she also said that she really wanted me to be a part of that forum, as well as there's going to be more committee forum type meetings, that this is the beginning of many. So, I know that sometimes it may be kind of challenging or maybe a little unbelieving to some of how things can be changed in school systems, was predominantly white government type school. But any small victory is a victory. I'll take any small victory and keep trying to get more. So that's one little small victory as far as an organizing of some type of community forum where discussion can be made, and we'll see what happens from there going forward. I believe it was last week that you also had a young female that wrote in that was facing some issues in school of a teacher harassing, or I forget exactly all the details there. But one of the things that I found to be helpful is, for me, I use a prepaid service for a law service. And if anyone want more information, they can contact you, or you can reach out to me. But whenever there's issues that I have with school, with my kids at school, just like with this email, I call the lawyer. I want to find out exactly what the law allows, or what the law states, what that could do, what can't be done. Even with home issues or work-related issues. I called about a work-related issue one time as well. So, again, I'm always calling whenever some issues arise, because I want to know exactly what the law says and what I can do, what I can't do, what's allowed. And so, for that young lady, it's helpful if she's got, a lawyer that can write a letter or something on her behalf, because that's something that I definitely recommend and have taken advantage of that. Another scenario where I use the lawyers to talk to find out information, a whole other scenario with my son at a predominantly white school. And there was a scenario where one of the cafeteria workers was making gestures, sexual gestures, to the black ball players, all the sports ball players. So there's a little bit of the delectable Negro going on there, where one of the players even had mentioned to me, saying that, yes, he always makes these gestures or says things in a flirtatious way to all the black male basketball players. But if there's a white male in line in the cafeteria, where he wouldn't say anything to them at all, totally just kind of ignoring them. But if it's a black male, he cheers right up, and he's trying to touch them, squeezing their arms and all this other thing. So that's one of the things I had to call the lawyer about. I wanted to find out, what could I do? What can be done? They wrote a letter on my behalf, and an investigation was launched, and there's a lot of other things that had transpired, but long story short, he's no longer at that school, but something else related to that school where, again, when your child is going to a predominantly white school, just ears up, eyes open, be alert, because there's all kinds of racist types things that happen. As you might have heard, that something that was just happened on yesterday, came on the news. I don't know if you talked about that or not, about the racist girl doing things with the black roommate's toothbrush and all the other kinds of stuff there. But anyway, another quick scenario, and then I'll mute my line there, where the sports, he's involved in sports, he's also involved with the security team, or with security there at the school. He literally has keys to all the dormitories, and where his home on campus there is positioned where he can have a good view of the dormitories of the ball players and the athletes and all. So while we were there on one of the visits there, he literally had said to us that, oh yeah, I'll just kind of walk in anytime to the kids' dorm rooms and just knock one time, and I'll just open the door, and just to make sure that nothing strange is going on there. And again, eyes open, ears open, and I'm saying, what? Excuse me, you do what? I'm sorry, but we're not comfortable with that with my son. So long story short, my son never, he says that never happened with him, but he definitely did it with some of the other kids where they might have been sleeping or so. He just opens the door and walks right in, looks at them, checking on them, or with the dormitory where there's like an open bay area, there's a bathroom there as well. He can just walk in anytime he wants to. Again, and also viewing the dorm building from his home or from his home there, where he would tweet to the kids or send them a message on Facebook or something, letting them know, hey, I saw that you had a visitor late last night. So he's like constantly watching them, constantly, viewing what's going on with their activity, dorm activities, as well as being able to just walk in freely, whether they're in their rooms, whether they're in bathrooms or whatever it may be. So again, one of those electrical Negro type scenarios where they've got control, they've got their eyes on them, they're watching them. If your kid is in an environment where it's predominantly white school, then I would suggest, for one, trying not to have your kid in a school like that, but if possible, if they do attend a school like that, then I would say if things happen, then find out where you can connect with a lawyer and get information as far as what rights you have, where the lawyers can do something on your behalf as far as writing letters or anything to make sure that your child is kept safe there. That's pretty much it. That's it for now.
Right on. Make sure for listeners appreciate the update with your situation with the racist letter that happened at the school and the forum. I was reminded of Spinning into Butter. It's a movie that's been referenced on this program before. It came out in the early mid 2000s about an incident of racism at a college campus. And the sound clip I use on the compensatory call-in, there's a white faculty member at the school, and after the racist incident, she says, we're going to have a race forum. And she gets asked, what is that? And she says, it's a forum on race. White people are great we will have a forum. And it does not invariably address the problem, but let us know if you are able to participate, ask good questions, and make it more constructive. One thing that I have heard Mr. Fuller say that a lot of the reason that he wrote his book and what he hopes in terms of why he offers counter-racist suggestions is that for a lot of situations, especially workplace situations, he's seen where, and I'm not discouraging it, I'm just saying that I do know that Mr. Fuller said a lot that a lot of times when you go to speak to attorneys, they will end up taking your money and not giving much assistance either in a lot of these situations. So he does try to give out suggestions, strategies that you can implement yourself without having to go and pay an attorney a lot of money to help or not. But certainly, in some instances, that would be the best way to proceed. Other instances, frequently you can do a lot on your own in a lot of these situations if you can just depends on how much information you can get, studying and figuring out what to say, what not to say, what questions to ask. A lot of times you can do a lot of things. And with that school situation, again, I would use Harvey Weinstein until they stop talking about all of this. I would use it in this climate. Anything that sounds like an adult or anyone is maybe being inappropriate. Are we really comfortable with someone having a key and just barging into a room anytime or an area, what have you, to check on someone? Now that, in the school context, I could see people having a lot of different feelings on that, particularly given the situation that happened in Virginia. I think within the last month or so, that situation where they had the children in the locker room who were pretending to rape little white racist children, pretending to rape black students, and all of the other filth that was happening there. So, I mean, you're going to have a lot of folks saying, hey, we need as many people in the locker room as possible. In fact, I don't even want them to stand outside. I want them in there the whole time, which just further goes to the point about whether or not you want to have your children in these environments at all. And then, I mean, wow, there would have to be lots and lots and lots of conversations. And I would, even if I was a parent, I would be trying to go and spend time in these environments yourself so that you can see what's going on, what's the supervision like, what does the interaction look like between the children? Because, I mean, wow, it just seems like apparently the half has not even been told with regards to the different ways that racism, white supremacy is being practiced against children in a lot of these environments. Other folks we've not heard from, if you had comments on what's been discussed thus far, or if you have your own situation, if you have a hand up, line should be open. Proceed.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Greetings, everyone. I thought it was interesting. The recent caller was speaking about a situation going on at school, and if adults are dealing with issues on the job, then your kids are probably dealing with things at school. I did come across an article recently that reminded me about how white supremacy will always try to find a way to refine itself, and it was about a school in Florida, Polk County, the Polk County school. I'm not sure specifically what school, but it had to do with a fundraising letter that went home. Or I'm not sure if it went home, but the letter itself did get out to some parents, and it spoke about if parents of a child would pay $100, then their child would be allowed to go all the way to the front of the lunch line rather than waiting in line. And it was just really interesting to me about how that can impact and how blatant that practice is started early and on purpose. I think sometimes people who may be confused, Black people may be confused about how the system works, might not believe that these practices would be so blatant, but sometimes they are. And then another thing that I have noticed, especially where I work, and in conversations I've had with other friends of mine in regards to being on the job, is that you'll notice to what degree racists are lazy. And what I mean by that is if you're aware of the system and you have a code and you've read your, workplace policies and procedures, they absolutely do not like that because you're holding a kind of standard that now they have to abide by. You've turned their clubhouse into, a place in which the rules now have to be followed. And that can definitely be one reason why they just simply don't like you there is because they're lazy. You just have in a way kind of artificially raised the bar by simply just trying to protect yourself, because you know that if you don't hold that standard, then they will find any small way to get rid of you. But if you are holding that standard, it really highlights to what degree they are lazy. And that's all I wanted to offer for comments for right now.
Appreciate that. And again, if folks, have figured out, because we have had a lot of folks who have experienced a lot of problems and anxiety having white people on the job who are not fulfilling their duties and obligations, lazy, trifling whites, and what to do about that and how to keep white people who are not doing their job from making a problem for you in getting your job done. So definitely, folks, keep that in mind. If folks have figured out some things that are helpful, sometimes you have to get another white person to get that lazy white person to, stop being shiftless and get some work done. If we got other folks who have not shared at all, if you have commentary either on what we've heard thus far, or if you have your own situation that you're dealing with that you would like to either share or get perspective on, feel free. Line should be open. Yes, sir. Thomas in New York. It's a little distant. I don't know if you need to speak closer to your microphone.
Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Gus. Good evening to all the callers. Forgive me, I was trying to talk, but I didn't have the right earpiece in. I had the other earpiece in. I was gonna reserve my commentary about what happened with the young girl until Saturday, but it kind of falls in line. So very quickly, what I was gonna pretty much bring it up to is going to football camp in high school. the sexual degenerate behavior that they would exude there, it was always something very like one day if you went to sleep, you were in trouble, you know. So they put Flexival, which is like a muscle rub, on this guy's penis while he was asleep. You know, like they pulled the penis down, the other one rubbed it on, you know, and they started laughing when it washed their heads. This guy jumped up in the middle of the night screaming, you know, and it was like the biggest joke to them. And it was like, man, this is the type of stuff they do to each other. So you could imagine the stuff they was doing behind each other's back, like maybe pissing in someone's shoe, or it was just so disgusting and stuff that, you know, we wouldn't, you know, our hazing was more, you know, you corner someone, you start punching them in the arm until, you know, for a few minutes, and then theirs is very, very sexually degenerate. And when I saw her putting a toothbrush in her butt and all that, it was just like, that's the type of stuff you expect from them. This week, 2 observations. One was we had the so-called terrorist attacks here in New York. So when I got to work that night at the hospital, of course, they were on high alert for some reason. So it was a lot of police officers, and I was privy to some of the conversations. So I asked the police officer, the white cop who generally works at the hospital, how come that's a terrorist attack, but the dude who shot up the place over there in Las Vegas wasn't a terrorist attack? And he says, come on, you know why. And he smiled and he went right on with his conversation. So I think he was pretty much just telling me, like, come on, you know, he was white. That's just all I would take from that. Secondly, along those same lines, another black guy at work who happens to work security. This is an older brother, and he had gotten into, I guess you could say, a problem with a Latino person that's over him. When I say Latino, I'm just trying to say it in the realms of being someone from the islands who speaks Spanish. This person is very light, but however, he can't pass for white. Either way, this guy and him got into it. So while we're standing there, this is the day before Halloween. There's another person that fits that same description that's standing there wearing, he had his face fully painted like a skeleton face. So I'm like, what is this guy standing here? I'm in the emergency room. Anything could be possible. So this guy goes on to start talking to me, and he had a very revealing conversation about some of the injustices that he faces as a black person at that job, as opposed to dealing with Latino people that's in charge. I'm just using that as a word so you know who I'm talking about. Either way, while he's saying all this, he got into telling me about this black cop. Now, he works on the day shift at the job. At my shift, it's the white cop. So I only see this guy in passing sometimes, if he stayed late. Either way, he said he grew up with him. He has 3 degrees. And he's very intelligent, always been, and he applied for the head security position, which I guess would come with more perks than being a cop. During the daytime, he's I guess a detective or a narco. He wears plain clothes, but he has to be in uniform to work at the hospital. And either way, how he's applied for this job and how these Latino people are messing with him because they want one of their own to get it, and how they even took a picture of him on his break while he was asleep on his break because he's working 2 jobs. You know, he's a cop during the day and doing this, that, as well. You know, they took a picture of him sleeping and emailed it to the guy who he has the conflict with, I guess in competition with him getting the job. And they're trying to wait for this guy to get 1 degree so he could get the job. It's all set up, and he was going through it. But while we're doing this talking, that as soon as the one of the Latino guards come out, that guy with the paint, he happened to be an undercover cop his partner got hurt. He goes over and starts talking to him in Spanish. So I said, I know he went back and said everything you just said, but it's just the dynamics of how that whole thing works. And I'll mute my line. Thank you.
Black Get Back. Wow. I think we had talked about that before. I think just in line with the firing, I think you can do that. I'm not saying not to do it. You can speak with an attorney, and it seems that frequently that does not help in the promotion situation. Sometimes it might. There might be a lawsuit, and after 50,000 appeals, maybe they will give you a few nickels. But it seems right in line with in the system of racism, white supremacy. Racists can fire any black person anywhere in the world anytime they want to, regardless of the job you have. And that was the position I had even when President Obama was in the White House. I think in that same vein, I think they can deny promotion to a non-white person, black person, anywhere in the universe, as long as the system of white supremacy exists, regardless of how many degrees you have stacked to the ceiling and regardless of your competence. Goes back to the first clip that I played. Now, you talk about stress and being disgusted in that sort of environment where you are extremely competent. You did exactly what they said. You spent all that time in school and all that money and studying and effort and discipline and all that sacrifice, and then there's not even a payoff. Like, you got white people getting promotions and such who don't even have the job, or non-white, non-black people, Black Get Back, who they can get the job after we wait and wait and wait for them to get 1 degree when I've already got 3. That right there will drive you to opioids or a whole lot of other destructive behaviors. But certainly documenting. One thing I would say about the sleeping thing, and there's nothing incorrect. If I heard it correctly from what you said, he was working 2 jobs. I mean, wow, this is someone who is the epitome of a hard worker, and he's on a break where he says, hey, I can, take a few moments, or I can try to get some rest, as opposed to, oh man, I'm leave him be and just go over here. It's, let's get a picture and see if we can, cut it out and, send it to his enemies on the job and maybe malign him or what have you. Just keep that in mind. If you are tired and what have you, be mindful that anything could happen to you while you are asleep. If you're in an environment where it's warm enough, if you own your own vehicle, maybe that would be a better option. Go out to your vehicle. I guess if it's cold, you could turn the car on with the heat on for a little while, and you could just sit in there and snooze a little bit. But man, just like we talked about with the firefighters, if you're in that environment, your sleep, your defenses are down, anything could happen to you. And even that alone, if it's just we want to take a picture and send it to this other guy that you're competing with for the job, even that, just would make me extraordinarily uncomfortable. And if there's anything that I could do to minimize that sort of thing happening to me, I would do it. So maybe keep that in mind as a reason to not nap on the job, unless you can find an environment, where you can be secluded and safe from that sort of thing happening. Other folks.
Because, that's the second time where it was someone sleep. Remember before I was working, and the black guy I was working with took a picture of a white woman's sleep, and the other white worker wanted her, they wanted that picture because they wanted to get her fired, and he didn't want to give it to them,
Right.
And yeah, that was another instance. So yeah, I agree with you. Don't sleep on the job, because you never know what's going to happen. I'm your mom.
I remember that incident. I don't even think workplace racism existed at that time, but that became a big brouhaha. They were trying to confiscate the black male's phone where, he had a picture of this and all, like, woo, policy and procedure, I think, came up there. Like, am I required to give you my phone to show, like, because if I remember correctly, this wasn't like a sting operation. This was not, we're going to get her in trouble and that sort of thing. I think this was just something goofy that got way serious. And again, it was almost like an ISIS type situation. Like, we can take your phone and look through it and get the file. So yeah, don't sleep on the job, particularly if you're a black person. I would not snooze on the job. Go to your car or, figure it out. But yeah, that is putting yourself in a dangerous situation. If we have other folks, if you have commentary you would like to share related to workplace racism, feel free, chime in. The number 641-715-3640 and the code 564-943#. Press *6 if you would like to participate. Remind folks this broadcast is not for spectators. This is not one for people to dial in just to say, oh man, it is so entertaining to hear what's happening to the black people at work or their little anecdotes and what have you. That's not what this is for. This is about black people sharing experiences. And really, if you have figured out some things that work, we especially need that. But certainly if you're having problems as well, share. If you have important sections from policy and procedure, that is always great. Make sure you're reading your policy and procedure, that you have read the entire policy and procedure. Very, very important. A lot of time, racists, white supremacists, they benefit greatly from us not being aware of what their stated policies are, because a lot of times they're not even observing their own policies. Other folks who dialed in with a hand up?
Gus, may I add something really quick? I don't know if anybody else has, if there are any new callers.
I don't see a new hand at the moment. Lots of spectators, so I reckon you can proceed.
All right. It'll just be really quick. I actually forgot just something else to report about my mother's job. I'm just going back to just what you just said, the policies and procedures. My mother said that there was an employee that she was managing, and the employee was a new employee during the probational period. And it seems like from the time that when I first started working when I was 16 up until now, it seems like these probational periods are getting longer and longer. And so with her particular job, there was a 90-day probational period, and this black female, she was very good at her job, but she kept basically having excuses to be late or to miss work. She had a doctor's appointment or something else had happened. And so the final straw, my mother was actually not working that day, but the final straw was that the agent was warned about not being late or not calling off, or else she would be fired. And the agent, the employee, she was 1 minute late, and they had and my mother's supervisor had went ahead and fired the woman. So it just definitely, I just definitely wanted to, let everybody know that now that you have all of these different right to work states and all of these different increases in probationary periods, to definitely be mindful of even 1 minute late can get you fired. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
That white man who is accused of being a sexual predator, a serial sexual predator, he did not get fired from NPR. He resigned. This person was 1 minute late and they were fired. Just pointing that out once again. But yeah, with policy and procedure for sure. And even on the tardy thing, Mr. Fuller talked about that. I think he has a great segment talking about that in terms of being on time, because that's one that they get a whole lot of black people on. That's one that comes down to discretion a lot of times as well. This person is a minute late. Maybe we let them slide. Maybe we don't. This person is 10 minutes late. Maybe we let them slide. Maybe we don't. A lot of that can come down to discretion, racism, white supremacy. But the timing thing, I would really factor that in when you get your job and say, hey, is this a job that I can comfortably get to, reasonably get to 30 minutes, 20 minutes late, 30, 20 minutes early every day? Like, think about that. Even before you take the job, however I'm getting to work, if I have to take public transportation or whatever you do, you bike, whatever, drive, can I get here reliably, consistently, 20, 30 minutes before I need to be here for this job? Like, really taking it seriously on that time thing. Even one of our listeners, that's the code that she put in, getting a new job, a job that, hey, I think I might want to keep this job for, a year, maybe even longer. Okay, so that's your code for a job that you might want to keep for a longer period of time. Okay, this is the time that I'm supposed to be here. I'm going to shoot for getting here 30 minutes before that time, and that'll give me extra time. I can gather my thoughts. I can meditate. I can think about my day. I can do a myriad of things to prepare to make sure that I am mentally ready to begin my workday. And as I stated, whites are nosy. Racist man, racist woman, they are paying attention, and primarily they are paying attention to us, their niggers. They noticed, wow, you're here consistently every day, 30 minutes before time. Wow, that's so impressive. Like, they noticed. That's the sort of thing that you want them to notice. And hopefully that can be brought up when it is raise time. Like, oh yeah, that's at least one in the plus column. Like, you got a whole bunch of, minuses that, that and niggers that goes together. But you got at least that one bonus that I do see you here early every day. Day after day, week after week, you are ready to roll. Wow, we wish we had more like you. Other folks who dialed in with the hand up that we've not heard from, line open, proceed.
Hey, Gus, can I say something about Tom real quick?
Proceed.
May I speak, please?
Oh, man. Go ahead real quick, Thomas in New York.
That's all right. My train's about to go. I'll pick you up on the other side.
Yes, sir. The other caller that just said if you could speak, yes, we can hear you. Proceed, sir.
Yes. May I speak, please?
Proceed.
Yes. I'm based out in New York as well. I basically see in my office a divide where the higher ups, I'm in a certain field of technical background, the higher ups basically want to only see white faces dealing with them. So the rest of us, we deal with a lower level of clients financially, but also all those clients that we tend to deal with, the rest of us that are black, quote unquote, non-white, we all deal with everybody that looks like us. Meanwhile, the higher ups, they all want to only deal with the people that are their complexion, white. So in the office, I'm on time. I heard what you were saying about that, and that's very on point. They know that. But one of the major things I notice is that they constantly try to sabotage me in front of my manager. And I'm trying to figure out ways and how to deal with that, because I'm not the loud, angry black man. I'm on time. I do what I need to do. But one of the things that's puzzling me that they're throwing is like this kind of, you're the player guy. Yeah, you get all the women in here. They're throwing out that quote unquote bravado, hyper masculine type of black male attitude at me. And I'm kind of like, at the same time, I don't want to address it. Once in a while, I still have to say something. It's just I'm getting to a point now where I feel like I'm kind of getting tired of it. I may have to pull somebody to the side, but I'm not sure if that's a good move in this environment. I'll mute my line. I just would like to hear any suggestions as well.
That's interesting. So they're, I guess, saying that are they using the term player, or are they using something similar?
Absolutely. That's exactly what they're using.
Oh, okay. So they're calling you a player, and I guess using terms to suggest that you are getting a lot of attention from the females in the workplace or females in general. That, to me, sounds like the same type of racist perspective, like the black male is always the walking phallic symbol. I think James Baldwin said that. Fanon certainly talked about that in Wretched of the Earth. Thank God we finished that one. But he talked about that as well. It's certainly in this climate, it seems like that would be an easy one to stop in this climate. Like, I think pretty much now anything that sounds like it maybe could be sexual, like, I don't think you would have to say a whole lot. I don't think you would have to grandstand or anything. Just, hey, like, I don't know if that's the sort of conduct that we want to promote in this climate. Do you? I mean, you can just put that in the form of a question with all this. I mean, all it would take is one Harvey Weinstein comment or anything like that to maybe make people rethink if they want to continue to make that sort of joke in the workplace. I would think, like, I mean, I'm serious. Like, I would wear that out. Anything that sounds remotely like, oop, I don't really like this. This sounds like it could be racist, or I'm certainly uncomfortable with it, and it's around sexual or anything like that. pull out Harvey Weinstein. I don't know if this is, for what's happening right now. Like, man, I would hope we kind of minimizing this sort of thing in the workplace. Don't you think that would be best? And just see what they think. What do other folks think? What do you think around them using this term of calling him a player in the workplace, and how you would deal with that, getting this stopped? Little distant. If you could maybe speak closer to your microphone.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do that a little bit better.
Speak up. Speak up.
Is that better?
That's an improvement.
One thing that I have gotten in the habit of is when people are not using being direct with language. I'll just say, I'm not familiar with that term. What do you mean by that? And that puts them in a position in which they have to be specific. That could be one thing that you could say, hey, I'm not familiar with the term player. I don't know what you're speaking. What do you mean by that? And hey, they'll be on record in some sort of having to explain, what they mean. That's one suggestion.
Great. Always a fan of getting folks to explicitly explain terms. That's a great one. And staying in the question lane too. Always a great one. What do you mean when you say player? Let me make sure this is, an admirable term, something that I want to aspire to be in this here workplace. Other folks, what do you think on dealing with being called a player in the workplace and how you would try to get that stopped?
I would say it's somewhere in my mind that says to speak directly to the statement by stating that I would appreciate it if you identify me by the name by my name. That's what I like to be called by. And if there's any identification of me, it should only be in reference to my yearly evaluation. That may be for the most part, it would be brought maybe individually, but also if I can see an opportunity where it can be spoken publicly within the group. When just about every job has some sort of group discussion at some point in time, and that'll be an excellent time to express that comment. And give an alternative. If there is something to say about it, then be quite clear on what you're talking about, because I don't understand on what you mean by whatever that phrase is that is being brought up on a continuous basis. To kind of like from the idea of to keep the work environment as clear as possible.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate that.
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
I would suggest to maybe even speak if you have a way to contact your HR department. If you don't want to do it, you could do it like anonymously. As I've also expressed, I'd like to try to do things as anonymous as possible, even though I understand that, of course, white people, they can find out anything any given time. But also, just like what Gus was saying, with all the different sexual allegations that are going on within the media, and also as the caller did mention, this is it. I think that it is definitely a clear attempt to sabotage any promotions, because what I've seen in my previous jobs, any black males who are known to, definitely it seems like they'll be more confused and just have relationships and relations with different females while on the job. They are the ones who are definitely kept in a more entry level or a close to entry level position. And it seems to me that they don't want necessarily that type of black male in, or maybe even a non-white male in any type of position of power, because that can then, and also just protect, yourself as a black male. If you are seen in that way previously, if you have to manage some type of white female, that could be a way for them to bring up allegations against you, untrue allegations against you. Thank you, and I'll mute my line.
Thank you again.
Appreciate that, Red in Ohio. Do we have any other thoughts, suggestions on how to proceed with this being described as a player and how to get that stopped?
Can I be heard?
Emmy.
Greetings, beautiful people. I do apologize. I'm in the store, but I wanted to comment while we were on the topic instead of waiting. So if y'all hear stuff in the background, I do apologize. This may or may not work for your particular situation, but my code that I'm just defaulting to is I just don't say anything. I mean, it's like chatter. Unless it's directed directly to me, like, to be honest, even then, I still don't say nothing. I just look, and then I move on. Now, in terms of somebody like trying to sabotage promotions and stuff, I don't know. Are they saying that are they calling you a player in front of the person that would grant you a promotion, and you feel like that's kind of blocking your promotion or something? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. Pardon the interruption. Absolutely. That's exactly what is occurring. And I could see that there's another non-white male that's basically going along with this as well, but he pretends to be kind of like my boy. Like, we kind of grew up the same and things, but he pretends to be like he's cool with me, but then he'll go back to them and chitter-chatter with them about things that I may have said. And I've literally cut him off completely as far as my opinions on race are, because he believes that there's no such thing as white supremacy. And once I know that, me and him can't have a conversation anymore. Not about that. We could talk about the game, but not about that. Sorry.
I respect. Oh, sorry. I totally respect that. Even still, silence is just a code that works for me. Like I in many situations in my different workplaces, work settings, where someone will try to embarrass me or undermine me, and I've just developed a way of looking at them and then moving right back into whatever it is I'm saying, so that I'm responding without saying anything. Because my experience has been that if I say something, I respond. Now there's some conversation or something, and I'm not the best with controlling. And perhaps this is why silence is the better code for me, because if I open my mouth, I'm not able to just say it in a way without all of what I'm feeling coming through in my tone or my nonverbals or anything. Not like I'll start screaming, but you can tell that we're in conflict, if that makes sense.
Yes, I understand that.
So
I think that's just you being honest, part of it. Go ahead.
Emmy, did you have more?
No, sir. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to add really quick, because it seems like he's been doing this a while. I got the impression, right? Like he's been calling you a player, or they, if it's a group thing, they've been doing this for a while. Like this didn't just start within the last couple of days. Is that correct?
No, this has definitely been going on for a while. I took notice when we had a new manager come in, and I took notice that immediately in front of him, that's what they projected, and a lot of this has to do with the fact that a lot of these are older white males, like they're going to do their job, and they know their job, but they know that they're on the way out, and I'm coming in. So it's a different type of scenario for them. And that's part of the reason why I may be to them a threat. It's understandable, but I think the underhanded tactic that they're using is definitely racial, and it's very hard to get away from, from what I'm noticing. But I do like what the sister said about the tactic of actually giving it attention, speaking to it, but not speaking to it. That is also another option as well.
One thing I would say real quick too, any of these situations, and it's not just this, anytime where whites have been engaging in some sort of incorrect white supremacist behavior, and maybe you didn't recognize it as that, or maybe it just made you uncomfortable and you didn't know how to deal with it. And then when you get to a point of better understanding where you now recognize this is incorrect, and or now you have figured out, okay, now I'm ready to deal with this and see if I can stop this. It's been my experience that can be difficult. Sometimes it's for whites, it's like, oh man, our niggers, changing up the rules on us, man. This is how we like to get down. This is, how we like to have fun. Now you're trying to be all different and all that. Just in my view, just that is something that is important to be mindful of, because sometimes this can even become you've changed, man. Is something wrong? Are you depressed? Like, you're seeming stressed out. And that's the sort of thing it can become. Just if there's a shift where you're reflecting more Black self-respect, and just correctly recognizing, wait a minute, this is, incorrect. Just some of the things that are happening, the way that I'm being treated. And I want to make sure we're proceeding in a correct way where I'm not being mistreated, where I'm not being called a player. And in that vein, since it seems like this is something that's been happening for a while, it might be the suggestion about just whatever you think is best. The question just about asking, whatever his name is, Todd, what exactly do you mean when you say player? Just, making sure here we're on the same page, and see what he says. And then once he explains, I think it'll be much easier if he explains something that's trashy or something that is not the type of person that they would promote in the company. Well, then, hey, I don't know if I want to be called a player around here. That's not me. That's not what I'm about at all. And you can just proceed that way. Also, the comment when you said that this guy, is it a white person? That's what we're talking about? Just making sure I'm not confused. You said you all kind of grew up with the same background, and this person doesn't think there's a system of white supremacy. This is a white person that we're talking about?
Well, basically, like I said, there's a group of them the whole group is white. Our team is separated, straight color line. It's blatantly obvious. That group tends to have their own office, and me and another coworker have an office. Mm. The non-white person that I work with is, quote unquote, would term himself as Hispanic. And this is something interesting also. I mean, we could probably have a whole show on that. You probably already did. I'm catching up to a lot of your shows, by the way. I bought Tommy Curry's book, definitely off of it. And I got to be honest, he's striking me as the person that I have to constantly watch what I say around him. And I realized that every time we speak, and the one time we spoke about race, he mentioned that he doesn't believe in white supremacy, and that, white people don't control finances, they don't control health, they don't control law.
Pardon me one moment. That is interesting. That's what the question was. Is this person white? You said he identifies as Hispanic. So I guess I'll ask you, do you think he could at any point function as a white man?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. So if we're talking to someone who is a racist suspect, well, one, I would go back to something that I've said a lot on workplace racism. I think it would be best to not have any sort of conversation at work about racism, white supremacy. The question that I asked, I didn't even, that is important. In fact, but for this particular suggestion about not talking about racism on the job, the race of the person is irrelevant. Whether they are white or not has nothing to do with it. I cannot think of a situation where it has benefited a non-white person in their career. Like, that is how I got that promotion. I went in there and told them we had to get Amos Wilson, and we had an in-depth discussion about white supremacy, and my career was on and popping from then. I've never heard that. I have seen the exact opposite in the workplace. So my recommendation would be, this is not the time. This is not what we signed up for, to have discussion about, do you think white supremacy exists and who's in charge of the world? That would be one, white or no. I also would not encourage non-white people to be in a lot of discussion about sports on the job. I just think that's promotes kind of another level of just not being serious. That's all. We did not come here to talk about Tiger Woods or how great the Lakers look or that LeVar Ball is. Like, that is not what we came here to do. Like, and that's another one that often takes a turn for the tacky because somehow O.J. Simpson has got to come up or Tiger Woods will be accused of doing something. The racism will come in there too. I would just keep it about business, and something just seems kind of tacky about we come into work, we're going to pretend to be cool, and the thing that we will talk about will be sports. That just seems real tacky. Like, we're not going to talk about Bitcoin technology, blockchain technology. We're not going to talk about anything of. We're just going to talk about, man, did you see the ball game? Like, come on. it's the 21st century. Any other suggestions on how to get the player thing stopped? Make sure. Roz, did you have a suggestion for this particular before we move on to the next subject, Roz, or did you have something else you wanted to address?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Thank you. I dropped off the line, so I totally forgot. I was up there trying to get on. I was like, oh, yeah, I dropped off the line. I didn't press the 6-1. Thank you. Yes, I would ask first. I think everyone gave great advice. I would ask definitely, what does that term player mean? I think that's brilliant. Just to elucidate what it means, because we all know that the term player is not going to have a positive connotation. Now, once they do let you know what that means, I would ask, well, why would you choose me of all the other people in this company to apply that label to? Wait for an answer on that. And then I would say, I truly prefer to be called by my name. I think I would ask you, do you think that with the situation that did happen with Harvey Weinstein, do you think that that is something that we should be promoting in the workplace at all? So I prefer that you please call me by my name and not a label that you have chosen to apply to me. Do not call me by anything but give them your name. If you choose to, you may not get an answer. That's what I would actually say. I don't know what state you're in. If you can look up the laws on recording, if your state allows recording of a person who's a party to a conversation, I'll record every conversation possible between yourself and that person, and especially conversation. Once they do, because like I said, the term player does not have a positive connotation, then you can move forward with just like Gus has said on previous programs, please call me by my name. That's it. And again, if it's a situation where you're not dealing with emergencies or you're not like a 911 operator, if they choose to call you, hey, Playboy, or whatever stupid label they come up with, you act like you didn't hear them and you keep it moving. And when they finally get fed up of being ignored, they're going to call their name if it's something important and work related, and they'll know to just leave that alone. I don't know how, hopefully it'll be for you. Let us know, I should say, which of those things might work for you down the road. I also think Emmy's suggestion of being silent is also good, because one thing is when you do get into a conversation, if you don't take the proper counter-racist approach, you'll be letting them know how you feel, especially if those feelings are negative. And white people are vampires, delectable Negro. They're going to feed off of that once they know that they have you in a position where they're making you uncomfortable. They're going to continue to basically push that point with you to continue to enjoy feeding off of the energy that you're giving off. So I don't know what the situation is for you, only you know that personally, but if I had to have a conversation, that would be the conversation I would have, because I think it's a good counter-racist one. You're asking questions and you're allowing them to box themselves in. And once they do so, you can let them know, I prefer to be called by my name, not a label that you choose to apply to me. If you choose to keep calling me that, be aware that you're not going to get an answer. Thank you. I'll mute my line.
Appreciate that, Roz. Number again, 641-715-3640. Code 564-943#. Press *6 if you would like to participate. I'm so thankful I didn't forget You had said that you and this gentleman grew up with a similar background. This person who says he is quote unquote Hispanic doesn't think there's a system of white supremacy and that we think is a suspected racist. If he is a racist suspect, you and he did not grow up in a similar manner at all, because he grew up learning the rules. If he is a racist suspect, someone who can function as white, he grew up learning how to be a racist. You did not. That is an astronomical difference. Other folks have comments they wanted to share on workplace racism. If you had your own situation or if you had comments on what we've been discussing thus far, proceed.
Good evening. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Thanks for allowing me to share, Gus. I would like to, I was, I guess it's a kind of a coincidence. I was speaking with a non-white black female today that I've worked with before. Again, I work in a military setting, where most of the staff members are in the military. But she was telling me a story. There's a new military white female doctor who is the supervisor at the clinic that they work at. She's the supervisor. She's a new supervisor, maybe been there maybe a month and a half at the most. So she came to the clinic again as the supervisor and was changing some things for what appeared to be better for the other workers there, allowing them to have more time off, lightening or lessening the patient load that they receive. But anyway, today, the non-white black female was telling me that the doctor, white female doctor, took the other staff members out for lunch and, paid for it. And was like, hey, you guys order whatever you want. Don't worry about it. I'm paying for it. And, order whatever you want. So they're, ordering, they're playing games. I think they're playing pool, just a variety of games that they had at the location where they ate. And, I guess having a good old time. Again, this is partially during work hours, but mostly during the, everyone's lunch hour. So the white female doctor decided to go around. I guess she wanted to, practice some racism or, have a little fun and have some, the typical game that they play. Like, hey, we're gonna go around the table and try to tell everyone something about yourself that we don't know or whatever. So again, she's the new person. Everyone else is very familiar with each other. So I guess they were going around the table, and so there's one black male who's he practices he's an anti-sexual or whatever. So this guy, it was his turn to speak, to tell him something about him that no one knows. And then she interrupts him as he's about to speak. She says, "Wait, let me guess. You used to be a girl." And then, everyone is, it appeared to be that everyone was, laughing it off like it was, funny or whatever. So that was one incident. And then another incident, the military doctor had visited a certain like a naval vessel, which a submarine, and she visited a submarine, and they were talking about, of course, the spaces on board these submarines are very small, they're very compact, so it's not a lot of room. So she was telling everyone, the other workers, about this trip to the submarine. So there's a black male, which I spoke about in another story, workplace racism before. There's a black male, very tall. He's heavily melanated. He's not the heaviest, but he's pretty. His tone is rather melanated. so very tall as well. So she says, yeah, we went on the submarine. Oh, man, and she referred to the black male, tall black male. Yeah, I bet if you were on that submarine, everything would have just turned dark, I guess it would have been a quote-unquote blackout if he would have, walked upon the submarine. And again, everyone's laughing, and I'm wondering if, these people that I'm pretty sure they didn't, they felt like they were forced to laugh because, again, she's the supervisor, has power, way more power than they have, and, they're laughing and goofing off. So those were two incidents. And then also the place where I work, there's a black male that used to work at the place where I work, but he no longer works there. He's in a totally different field, but he decided to visit our workspace and just say hi because he works upon the same military installation, but just at a different building doing a totally different job that's outside of our field, which is medicine or whatever. And he's visiting, and then our new supervisor, white male, who I guess he says he's Italian. I don't, anyway, but white male who frequently practices racism. I guess he saw the black male visiting, and he approaches him, and he's pretending to be joking, and he said, "Hey, so what exactly do you do now?" And the black male is explaining, and I peeked outside of the area where I work just to see what's going on, and this the white male doctor supervisor has this black male's badge in his hand. It's like he's a police officer, or enforcement officer, so to speak. He's just looking at it, and I don't know if the black male offered it up, but I think the guy just grabbed it, and was just looking at, let me look at your badges and let me see what your job title is, because I'm white and I that's what I want to do. And the black male explaining exactly what he's doing. He's in the IT field, and then the white male makes a joke like, "Oh, so you're just a computer monitor. Get it? Computer monitor?" Ha ha ha. He's laughing. So, and I kind of thought when I heard that, I was thinking about, I guess, Dr. Martin Kevorkian talking about color monitors or something like that. But anyway, he was just practicing racism, and yeah, as usual. And so lastly, I would like to say this. I would like to get, some opinions. I didn't want to take too much time on this, but as far as this white male doctor, my supervisor, he calls me by my last name, which is, it's kind of commonplace in a military environment, but really you should be calling about Mr. or Mrs. or Miss. He just says, my last name. And I kind of take that, and I don't, I know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to say anything unless he gets a little far. He throws another syllable or tries to make it a pet name or something. But I take it as practicing racism because, it doesn't say, hey, Mr. So-and-so, blah, blah, and address me that way. And I think he's just taking that away to, just kind of, I don't want to say demean me, but just make sure, hey, I'm superior to you, and I'm not going to refer to you as a Mr. You don't deserve that label as Mr. I'll just call you your last name. And the other black males that worked with me, they all have, initials as name. They don't refer to them as Mr. blah, blah, blah. It's, JD or DJ or T, just that. And I'm not sure if these black males requested to be called this, but I just kind of assumed that more racism is just being practiced. And I just wanted to take note of that. But I was wondering what people think about the Mr., Miss, or anything like that, because I'm very serious around the workplace, and, I refer to people as their full, whatever identity, whether it's military title or if they're a civilian, I say Miss or blah, blah, blah. But that's all I had to share. Thanks for allowing me to share.
Appreciate that. I completely agree in terms of them not calling you Mr. in front of your name. I think it's a long history of that method of white supremacy being practiced, and I think all of that is connected. Either not with the mail call that we had previously, hey player, and all of that is connected. I think we've had people call in before. When they go to speak with you, it becomes all of this hip hop jargon and all of that they never do. Hey, what's up, bro? And the crazy handshakes. It might take the form of we just won't put sir in front of it. It might take the form of they call you by your first name in an environment where most people are being referred to by their last name. All of that. We just got to find a way to undermine and make sure, and it's really to make sure that I am able to actively demonstrate my contempt for my niggerizing this black person. I mean, that's really what it is. You know, I do not see you. I don't think of you as being an equal. You're a nigger. And that's going to come out some way, shape, or form. If that means that I just don't call you sir. I don't ever call nigger sir. So, you know, it'll just be Johnson. Everybody else, Mrs. Jackson, Mrs. Turner, Mr. Nelson, Johnson, and it's standard, long running. If I think what you said makes sense in terms of waiting. If it changes, if you are acceptable, him just calling you by your last name in that environment, fine. But if it changes, he's not pronouncing it correctly or tries to add something on, then to ask a question or say something about it, that makes, to me at least, that makes reasonable sense as well. The tackiness of the earlier situations, I guess. And again, this is why I meant to say that. That was such a great reminder. We're now in the horror day season, so there might be a lot of these instances where let's go out, for drinks, or let's go out for a meal. It's the season and all that. I'll pay for it, or we'll make it a group activity. Why I've said for years to avoid those type of instances, because this is what you're going to get: some tackiness. The first situation I think you mentioned where it's a black male, maybe he's engaged in anti-sexual behavior, quote unquote homosexuality, and you're supposed to say something that people don't know, and this tacky race soldier white woman blurts out, "Oh, you were a girl." Total tackiness. That's about what you can expect. A lot of times in these sort of situations, alcohol might be involved. I would avoid it, and or if you're going to go, to be prepared that it could be a lot of that sort of conduct, and they might even try and easily excuse things that are said there. Might be a great environment depending on how you feel about taking your recorder, because I have seen situations, and this has happened on my job, where things that people did and or said in those environments did end up having an impact on their job performance. So might be another great reminder, if you do have to participate, have your recorder at the ready, just for when. Think of it this way: have your recorder at the ready for not if, when the tackiness begins. And so I got the book on my desk right now, Color Monitors, Dr. Martin Kevorkian's The Blackface of Technology in America. He is an admitted white supremacist. Been on the program many times. I have to see if I can remember to play him the clip of this segment. I'm sure he would get a hoot and maybe even give some analysis to a black person being referred to as a color monitor in some sort of tacky joke, racist joke at that, on the job. I guess you did say you wanted feedback about the SIR situation. Did folks have comment or I guess suggestions, thoughts about how you would proceed with the white man who is not saying Mr. in front of his name? He's just calling by his last name in an environment where it would seem that that's kind of stands out as being peculiar. Did folks have thoughts about that?
Yes. I kind of like didn't think of it in that way until the caller expressed it, and I can see his point on where that was a sign to him of a sign of being disrespectful, perhaps, because my thought has been, as far as things like shortening my first name, but I can see the not having the title part in front of the last name. For the most part, when I was called Mr. Fill in the blank, it was for some sort of trouble on the job itself. As far as that's concerned, I quote unquote legally changed my last name to something that I wanted to be known by. And like the military, you have you have your name on a tag on your breast, part of your uniform, and I basically the job itself helped me enforce it. I mean, me not having any power, but you had the everybody on the fire department had to adopt to that immediately, and I of course was vigilant on it. And simply, if I didn't get addressed in that way, I just wouldn't answer. As simple as that, and that would be quite difficult to proceed on a job like I was on, and the person who was incorrectly giving me a false identification would be the one that would have been in trouble, not me. But I can see where he was talking about with the not giving a title in it. I just wanted to speak on the first part that he was talking about, and my question would be, and he can answer it also. It's kind of hard sometimes to figure out with military terms on when something is an order and when it's not. I said that because that if I didn't have to be in that session where this officer or official or whoever that person was of authority talking about things that people wouldn't know, I would be out of that meeting right there if it was something that wasn't a quote unquote order. And last but not least, it was a movie that Denzel Washington played in, where his job, he was in the military and on this submarine, and in that small environment, the session, I don't know if y'all remember the movie, but the session where they were at the dinner table, quote unquote dinner table, and that's something you can't escape from, I presume, and from there they were engaging in quote unquote small talk, but the actor that Denzel Washington played, and I know part of him probably played a part in it, in itself, he was quite codified in how he behaved. If anybody can remember the name of that movie and the scene that I'm talking about, he was quite codified when he was asked certain questions at that dinner table. So even if you're forced to be in that type of environment, always be prepared to have some sort of codified response to silly questions because actually what it is, it's white supremacy at its best, at its works, prying into their non-white victims' personal lives. That's basically what it is, and that's all I have to say.
Crimson Tide, Gene Hackman.
Yeah, that's it. Do you remember the scene I'm talking about?
I believe
I thought it was very cool. I think it was quite codified. It was like a questioning around the table, and he actually wasn't saying anything at first, which is also a codified response. But the captain of the entire ship kind of like put him on the spot, and he gave quite codified responses to what was being talked about. So I'm just saying, be prepared for things like that if it is something that you can't physically get out of.
Well said.
That's it.
Any other thoughts on the mail caller situation where this suspected racist is not saying Mr., when he references him, he'll just call him by his last name. Any thoughts on how he should proceed with that? Perhaps folks can ponder on it if you have thoughts on either how to proceed or what you, if you, just how processing what might be happening to motivate the race soldier to behave in this manner. You can share as we roll. Is it anyone that we've missed completely? Any callers have a hand up that we have not heard from at all? Have commentary that they wanted to share?
Hello, Matthew?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm a student. So does that qualify for workplace racism?
You said you're a student?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, sir. Proceed.
Oh, yes. So I'm calling out of North Carolina, and I go to I guess what you would call a quote-unquote liberal university, and there's a plethora of things that I could just say on some of the tackiness of white people. I also play a sport. I play rugby and football there, and the rugby team is majority white, with some white people from Europe that are studying abroad on the team as well. And a quick thing that I noticed from playing football and rugby is that even when white people are on opposing sides, they're still on the same team. They're still on the same team. I mean, the handshakes, the way they approach each other. I mean, I just left Baltimore from playing football to the season of rugby ended, and there was a fight, but that's besides the point. Some of the coded things I've learned from being around white people and just not talking or divulging my own information. One, as I was playing, they do something called a Zulu, which is basically when a player scores his first points, they'll have a party, and they will that player who scored will strip down naked, and he will run in a circle as the fellow teammates encircle him, and they will pour a beer around him in the nude, and he will say Zulu warrior, which I found extremely just awful, terroristic. It's like some kind of ritual, very, very homoerotic. I guess too, I've been, talking to, females. I'm trying to talk to females, just, plutonic or whatnot, just talking. And I've learned that a lot of white females are playing intermediaries in between the relationships between black females and black males. And they have ran away a lot of black women that I've spoken with, just because they, for some reason, well, I understand the reason, they trust these white women more because it's under the guise of, safety. But, we're all students. It's not really a threat. It's just that they're like showing some sort of power over black females. But at the same time, the white females approach the black males, which is it's its own thing. And three, the professors there. So a lot of times I was just threatened by a professor because I had on my headphones and I was walking in the parking lot deck. And as I was walking, she was pulling up beside of me, and she rolled her window down and said, "If you don't take off your headphones, one day you're gonna die." And she just sped off. It's just been I have an experience almost every single day, but I've been trying to be patient. It's just a lot of stress, and I'll put myself on mute. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Wow. That I think we've had a few other listeners who called in about the having headphones on and being attacked by racists, even in the grocery store and what have you. Just that is definitely something to keep in mind if you do have headphones on, that we are on a system of racism, white supremacy, and that might those headphones might compromise your ability to hear what's happening around you in a system where people are looking to harm you, unfortunately, if you are black, non-white, but especially if you're a black person. That notwithstanding, like, wow, that the whole, in terms of being a student and at that level, it's going to be a myriad of things that you deal with. I think understanding that, I think, number one, puts you in a much better position, understanding what you said, that regardless, people that are classified, individuals classified as white, they are working as a unit. They are the only race on the planet practicing racism, white supremacy, and understanding that even when it looks like, even when they might be verbalizing that they're enemies and I don't like such and such and we're feuding. And as you said, on opposing teams, they got into a fight at the game today and what have you, but they're still white. They will get together and have a beer afterwards. In terms of the ritual that you observed, I mean, there are annals of books and dissertations and what have you that have been written about the homoerotic white rituals at the collegiate level, and particularly at fraternities and what have you, and the sports. I was thinking of the Duke lacrosse incident from some years back. Crystal Mangum, the black female who's in greater confinement now, who alleged what happened with the Duke lacrosse team. But the full title of Vincent Harding's book is The Delectable Negro: Human Consumption and Homoeroticism Within U.S. Slave Culture. Read the whole book on the book club earlier this year. For sure. Important. Now, been mentioned a bunch of times on the broadcast this evening, but that is, wow, not only the homoeroticism, but that sounds dangerous. I would not feel comfortable participating in that, being around that as a black person in any way, shape, or form. Wow. That is, yeah, I'll leave that there. Wow. Make sure you talk.
Gus, I just want to.
Yes, sir.
I want to clarify. I'm
yes,
sorry.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Because I put the football team, or the club football team, is predominantly black, and the rugby team is predominantly white. Okay. And I just want to say, with the football team, we were facing another predominantly black football team, and there was a fight. There was a lot of trash talking. Mm. But when you play rugby, which is predominantly white, they're shaking hands, calling each other sir, helping each other up, and it's like you said, you could be killing each other during the game, but they are on the same side, and everything you say has been correct. I was just clarifying.
I appreciate it. Accuracy is important. Strive for accuracy. Thank you for setting it straight. And that is depressing. There's certainly nothing to rejoice about if what Gus T Renegade has concluded about what's happening on this planet is accurate. That is a horrendous thing, but I would much rather have the truth, and then we can deal with it and, go about the business of solving this problem than to lie to ourselves and say, oh, yeah, it's wonderful. We got the Lulu ceremony and, Mr. Weinstein, and it's all great. Things going great. Other folks, commentary that they wanted to make sure they get in. We have about 30 minutes left. Please don't wait till the last minute if you have commentary you want to share.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
This is in reference to the current call of the rugby and football player. And what I thought was really interesting, he said that the white women, if I'm not mistaken, kind of play as an intermediary between the black women and the black men. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
I've been having a conversation with a lot of my black women friends in regards to gender and.
What does this have to do with workplace racism? Oh, okay. I was waiting.
Say that again?
No problem. If it's related to workplace racism, I was curious.
It was just that dynamic, that intermediary between the black women and white women, and I think it's that whole "we're both women" thing is often used as a tactic to confuse. The black women that I've had this conversation with have concluded that they don't have anything in common with white women, except for the same bathroom they might use. But besides that, they have concluded they have more in common with black men than they do with white women. So, this is something I just wanted to say or get some feedback on. and I believe I've concluded the same thing. So that whole, we're all women, well, when you start taking away these so-called pieces, I think Dr. Tommy Curry talks about how intersectionality doesn't work well. If they had to choose one, they will always pick white, for they'll pick being a woman.
Context.
And I will mute my line.
Appreciate it. Context of white supremacy. We have other folks who had comments they wanted to share. If you had your own situation you want to touch on, or if you had comments on what you have heard thus far, feel free. Did anybody have difficulties with the horror day? Halloween was this week, so they tell me. Did that cause a workplace problem for anyone as we prepare for all of the holidays that are getting ready to run down as the year wraps up?
I didn't for obvious reasons, because I'm retired. But just wanted to say to the last caller, the college student, the best thing about school in this term college is that it is organized to the standpoint, almost from a daily standpoint, of what is going on. And so therefore, at the same time, I think at the same time you should codify your time in college, i.e. by daily or weekly, monthly, semester-wise, and what you're going to do, what goals you're going to accomplish, that sort of thing. And of course, minimize your contact with white people. That is always something that has to go into your planning, and you would probably avoid a lot of situations that would jeopardize you accomplishing what you go to college for, which is to learn something and also get that credential that's called a diploma.
I have a compensatory request. The student who just spoke up, who was sharing about his experience, scholar athlete no less, my request would be, since you're a scholar, you're in school, students, you do reports, you have made your observation. It would be great if you could, I was going to say write us a report, but some people are visual. So if the report was a video, that would work too. But if it could be some sort of report on what you learned, like in your time on the rugby team, like that ritual, like that's the sort of thing I think even Dr. Curry would appreciate, like having that documented in detail, like this ritual of, pouring the beer and being nude. I mean, wow. Like to read Vincent Woodard, Delectable Negro, and then hear that this is happening right now, 2017, this is our young, what they call best and brightest, quote unquote, young men, presumably, and this is what they're doing. And at the same time that the Weinstein and all this other stuff is going on, that would be great. So if that's something that you could kind of write up in terms of just the things that you saw and what that reveals about what it means to be white and how racism, white supremacy operates, just that would be great. Does that sound like something of interest that would be worthy of your time and energy that, you'd even be interested in doing?
Absolutely. All I need, I guess, is information to send these things. I guess contact information. Because I see a lot of more things than that I saw on that team, even at that college itself.
I think, certainly you could send it to me, but just in terms of being serious about the scholarship of counter racism, that's the sort of thing I think if you wrote it on academia.edu or something where, it could be like a professional type presentation, I am sure Dr. Curry and many other scholars would want to take a look and read, and even just counter racists like myself would appreciate, something like of value, because I think it's serious and worthy. This is the type of these are the types of acts that are often obfuscated and minimized. And then when you end up having something like Daniel Holtzclaw happen, or Jerry Sandusky, or, just go on down the line, everybody sits around, well, I can't believe it. And this sort of thing has been happening all the time. Maybe, maybe Mr. Weinstein, maybe he played rugby, maybe he was on the rugby team too, with some of this behavior. But I think getting some serious documentation that's written, I think that would be great. Like, again, if it's worthy of your time and energy. But yeah, untiljustice@gmail.com, my email. If you write up something and want to share, I would love to post it. I'm sure some of our listeners would love to check out your material as well.
Oh, that sounds great. That's Until Justice?
Yes, sir. Untiljustice@gmail.com.
All right, thank you, sir.
Other folks, anybody we missed completely have commentary they want to share? Proceed.
Yes, sir. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. Greetings to Gus, the host, the listeners and callers. There was a few incidents that I have. Some were from about 2 weeks ago and some were recent. Just to get those out of the way, there was some jokes being made. I guess you can call it a joke. There was a white supervisor that I guess had to go outside and move her car when they had those like Nazis, like or whatever, doing a little march downtown about 2 weeks ago, and somebody said that, well, damn, I wonder where she went. I think she went to go get a hood, a Klan hood. So somebody, like, I think that was a black person, said that about the supervisor. And, like, I spoke to my mother, and apparently somebody else made, like, a white person said this about, like, another white person that was taking that day off during the Spencer speech. They said, why is he taking the day off? He must go on to purchase his Klan gown or something like that. And it was she reported to me it was a white person and a non-white male, like, laughing about this white guy that took that day off, and I guess made the accusation that he was going to go wear a KKK outfit. And there was another person who was speaking about, she would ask a question to Richard Spencer, what would be considered a white person. And as she was talking about this, and the judge was standing next to her, she was saying, well, and she kept interrupting herself, saying, well, I don't agree with it or anything, but, I'm 1/16th Cherokee. Now, this is what she's saying. I'm 1/16th Cherokee, and I would ask him, who would be a white person. So, and I said, maybe you could ask him that. And that was something else somebody else mentioned about that point in time 2 weeks ago. And there was a white person who I guess was having some personal issues, and it looked like a lot of commotion was going on, and she was very hysterical, like crying and upset. So this white person, she never really gave me any trouble or whatever. She was courteous to me, but she got up and walked off the job, and I never seen her again. But what's interesting is that there was a black female hired, and she's sitting right at that same desk. But this person, from what I'm hearing, was very, I guess hostile or like threatening to quit, like multiple times, causing a scene, throwing her belongings all over the desk, you know, causing a disturbance, and, you know, I guess basically bluffing that she would quit the job, but she just kept continuing to work when there have been black people, you know, as the comparisons have been made before, who were fired for, you know, a lot less things, things that weren't as severe. So this person actually left, okay, she walked off the job when a few weeks ago the non-white female was terminated. So definitely a very interesting, powerful comparison. Two last things. There was a metaphor that was used that a black female said to me, and her white supervisor came and repeated it. If I remember it correctly, she said that I don't want to get caught behind the 8 ball. Like, I don't know if anybody heard that. That was my first time hearing it. And she, like, I was talking to her, and the white supervisor, she came to interrupt, and she said, you know what, when you just said, you know, you just need to go home, and, you know, you sound like you're very sick, because you called me saying that you was caught behind the 8 ball. So I never heard of that one before. And the last with the Halloween costumes, like, Gus, I wanted to get your view on this. There's a black female, this one stood out to me. She wore a afro, a leather jacket, some black boots, black shades, and a Black Panther t-shirt. Okay. And she was taking pictures with everybody, and, you know, everybody smiling and whatnot. You know, I mean, I looked at it the first time, but then I thought about it. I said, wow, that is very deep, man. But the t-shirt, it was the comic character, like the Black Panther, but she had the leather jacket like the 60s. So the symbolism behind that, I never got to talk to her about this. I know the person, but I never spoke to her. I just said I have a shirt like that. So, yeah, I wanted to see what your view on that was. And that's all I have. Thank you.
What was on the shirt again specifically? You said it was, what was it?
Like the comic book character Black Panther, it was just his head, and it was a black t-shirt, and it said Black Panther.
I see. Okay. And so this was her whole kind of Black Panther, Angela Davis kind of costume, it seemed, with the sunglasses and the afro and the black leather jacket and the whole getup, right?
Right.
Okay. And she was taking pictures. And you said, just to kind of get my thoughts on that as a Halloween costume, or what specifically?
Like, what could there have been, like some kind of like another intent behind that, or like some kind of message, you think? Like this, because I had never seen nothing like that. Like, I know you can't see it, but just me telling it to you. But like, you know, as far as them choosing a costume to wear on the job, choosing that kind of costume, you know, a black person.
Mm-hmm. It would have been really interesting to hear, you know, her explain why she chose to wear that. I mean, it could have been, you know, this is, I can, you know, get my revolutionary side out on the job. You know, it's so much craziness is allowed on October 31st that, you know, I can allow my, you know, true quote unquote revolutionary self to be present. That could have been her thought process. It could have been just, hey, it'll be cool. I can, you know, be Angela Davis. It could have been as simple as that. It's hard to know in terms of what motivates people. I have seen, it was said jokingly that many people at the time in the 60s joined the Black Panthers because it was cool to wear a leather jacket and a beret. So I could certainly see some people saying that would be a cool getup for Halloween. So, I mean, it's Yeah, it would have been cool to hear directly from her. What was her motivation? What was she going for? I did paying attention to some of the other comments that you were talking about. That's directly Dr. Welsing. She talks about being caught behind the eight ball in her book. It's in the ISIS papers. I was trying to get the exact portion in the ISIS papers where she talks about it. I think I can pull it up in the broadcast, but she talks about that in terms of white people when they are feeling a sense of anxiety. And it seemed from what you shared, when the white woman used that phrase, another white person said, "Oh, wow, you sound sick because you just said that." Like, she had concern, right? Like that, because Dr. Welsing, she talks about that symbol. They know the significance of that and what that means, meaning the white ball being stuck. The white ball is supposed to dominate. The white ball is supposed to totally eradicate all of the non-white balls from the billiard, in the game of pools, from the billiard table. So to be caught behind the black ball, like, things have gone totally awry. And in fact, the black ball could even bump and knock the white ball off the table. So Dr. Welsing decodes that phrase in the ISIS papers, the late mentioned again. Paying attention to those metaphors on the job, very important. That first portion that you talked about, where you said, I guess it was multiple people on the job, had said, a white person went to get their Klan hood. I guess the caller in Florida a couple of weeks ago, Richard Spencer, was down in Florida giving a talk. They had a state of emergency, and this was a big to do. So I guess at that time, a white person leaving, I guess if they're joking and saying maybe they were at the Richard Spencer protest or whatever it is, that's something I would just write down. I would make a note of if a white person made that comment, even in jest. Ted wasn't here today. Maybe he was out getting his Klan outfit. I would not want a black person saying that at all. And I guess for the people who do, suggestions, if you talk to other black people and maybe try to give them a heads up, man, I would not encourage saying that at all, ever. I could easily see a white person overhearing that and saying, "What? Are you calling, Jonathan a racist? That is totally unacceptable. I'm going to HR right now," and making a big to-do about that. Like, I would not encourage any non-white person to say, anything like that in a workplace environment. If a white person said that, even in jest, I would write it down. Date, time, this is what they said, and move forward. Just to put that away in your notes, that even a white person felt comfortable making that sort of joke in a workplace setting.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir, Roz.
Yes, I had two things. One is an incident I experienced when I had some work done at my mother-in-law's house recently. But the first thing, before I get to that, it is workplace racism. It's funny how things developed. But behind the eight ball, that's a term I heard quite a bit. And over time, studying the system, I've come to understand that term has two connotations. The first one would be where a white person is literally behind a black person. In other words, they might be Harvey Weinstein supporting Jay-Z and doing the Khalid Florida documentary. He was basically, in that situation, the white person can lose by being on the wrong side of the system of white supremacy. The other connotation would be behind the eight ball, in the sense that when you hit the eight ball into the pocket, that's how you win the game. But if the white ball also goes behind the eight ball into the pocket, you lose anyway. So that connotation means a person who's properly practicing white supremacy and still loses in some form of being reprimanded by openly about the racist practices that they've been propagating. That's something that I've come to understand by studying the system, that those are two connotations for that behind the eight ball statement that white people tend to use. The incident was recently we had bath fitters come in to actually put a new tub together at my mother-in-law's house, and it's basically they put like a vinyl fitting over it, so it's completely sealed in and watertight, so you don't have to worry about any sort of leaks or tiles falling out and damaging the bathroom. So they sent this white terrorist there to do the work. I wasn't able to be at the house when the person had first arrived. So my wife was there, my mother-in-law was there, and she said when he came, he was just real rude. He wouldn't answer her questions. She asked him how long he would be there. They told her, the headquarters said they would be there between 7 and 4. He came late at 9. And when she asked him, would he be done by 4 o'clock, he would not give her an answer. So eventually, she ended up calling me, and she said, well, I want you to come over because he's practicing racism. So I said, no problem. I hop and skip and jump. I'm there. So when I come in, he tries to be pleasant with me. I don't smile. I don't say anything. I just actually start questioning him about the things he wouldn't answer with my wife. So as I'm sitting there, I just said, I'm going to stay the whole day until this creature leaves the house. So as this day develops, he's trying to start small talk. She's like, oh my goodness, he wasn't doing any of the small talk till you arrived. I sneeze. I'm hearing, God bless you. She's like, what kind of behavior is this? She said, then she says, you see why I need to have a black male here? She said, as soon as you came in, his whole demeanor changed. I said, of course. I said, this is how white people function. So at the end of the whole event, he ends up leaving, and she said he was slamming things and stuff before I got there. All the slamming and stuff stopped when I got there. And I was completely cold with him. I wasn't nasty. I wasn't disrespectful, but I wasn't going to be friendly. You're a terrorist. You're the enemy. You're in my mother-in-law's house, and you're disrespecting my wife. I'm not having it. So after the event was over, my wife wasn't sure what she wanted to do. I said, don't you dare let this slide. I said, you're going to call headquarters, and you're going to file the complaint of the century by letting them know everything that this troll has done, this creature, this beast has done. And she said she wasn't sure at first, but I said, listen, when we don't have to do anything for one of them to call and facilitate us losing our job. I said, you are not going to let any white person ever, as long as you are breathing and I'm your husband or your attempted husband, you're not going to let them slide for anything, because I'm not either. So she hops on the phone. She calls corporate. She explains everything. The guy who's in charge is completely flabbergasted by what is taking place. And right now we're waiting for an update as to what's going to happen or how he's going to be dealt with, because he was pretty adamant about this mistreatment being something that the company doesn't tolerate. So we're going to see what they do or say to him as this develops. But ultimately, I don't like them coming in the house in the first place. They happen to send this white guy, and we had to deal with it. And just the idea that sometimes having a black male around, especially if you're doing anything where they have to send or potentially might send a white male to do some sort of contract work or things of that nature, I think is essential, because these are the types of abuse that black females go through. And a lot of times, because we may not be physically present, they may not speak about it, and they might not want to follow through with actually reporting that incident or moving forward with making sure that that white person is dealt with in some form or fashion. Thank you. I'll mute my line.
Great job of black self-respect coming in to secure the household, and great job recommending that report be filed. Really important. Same thing with paperwork, documentation, same thing that they do to us, write-ups, get those write-ups and reports and what have you, the same thing. A detailed write-up of all of the incorrect and rude behavior, not even answering basic questions when this person is working for you. Detailed write-up. Same thing that they do to us with conviction in terms of, this person's conduct. Did we have, I found the phrase, since Roz gave his thoughts on the 8-ball, which was important as well. I did find where Dr. Rusing wrote about 8-ball, or not even wrote. This was when she was on the program, Context of White Supremacy, back in 2011, where she stated, so then the next phase is a black man runs for the president of the United States of America. Well, even though there was white support for his presidency when he got into the White House, and you have a black man with his white wife and his black children and his black mother-in-law in the White House, even the people who classify themselves as white, who called themselves liberals, began to think, oh my God, what have we done? Because just the image of the black man being in the White House and being in charge began to set off the anxiety of, if we lose power, if the power equation changes, and this in the symbolic parlance of white supremacy speech, you don't want to be caught behind the 8 ball. But President Obama, being in the White House, makes the white mindset that is concerned subconsciously about white genetic survival begin to feel, wait a minute, we're being caught behind the 8 ball. And that translates into white genetic annihilation. So then we have this massive attack. We can call this the third reconstruction, meaning the reconstruction of racism, white supremacy. That is from 2011, her commentary using the phrase being caught behind the 8 ball. We have about 5 minutes. Anybody have a final comment? If we missed, I guess Thomas in New York had said he did have something on being on time. Did you want to get your commentary in about being on time, Thomas in New York? If you're able. Might be.
No, I didn't really have anything else on that. I do think it's obviously important, just not within work, but overall for anybody. Being on time to your peers, especially to another brother or sister, it's just a sign of respect, hands down. But one thing I wanted to add is that I never expected to be in the position where I was staying at the job that I was staying. I thought I was going to go to something else a little bit bigger, but I'm a single father right now. So I have to kind of be very cautious in the steps I take to become financially independent, because I want to be able to, of course, support my household. But that is all.
Appreciate that. It was actually Thomas in New York. Your line should be open, sir. Thomas in New York, did you have a comment you were going to get in on being on time?
Oh, absolutely, Gus. Yeah, and my grandmother always told me behind the 8 ball was a metaphor for white people that follow black people. Yeah, what I was going to say is I once had a job and I was, let go of that job for being late. And I was over the course of 8 months, I was late 6 times. The 6th time was the time that they let me go. But no, I apologize. I was late 5 times. A total of 6 minutes though, but it was 5 times. But that 5th time they let me go, and the boss even thought that I didn't get my unemployment as well. He went the extra lengths, so we even had to have a conference call and everything, but he wasn't budging. So that was one incident. I had another job where you had a 7-minute grace period to be late, but it didn't apply to our department, because in the very last page of the handbook it said the managers have the right to run their department the way they see fit, and that our boss didn't see fit that we could be a minute late. So just always watch the time, and also look for that extra clause in the handbook as well. Sometimes they have discretion. I'll mute my line.
I think that's the second time we've heard that word on the broadcast this evening. Mr. Steele, Ken Steele, did you have commentary you were going to share, sir? I think your line should be open. Are you there, Mr. Steele, or are you just listening?
I'm here. I'm a bit indisposed.
Oh, okay. We'll be here tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, for the book club. The book club, Neil Postman, Crazy Talk, Stupid Talk. I'm really enjoying the book, Metaphors. A lot of great insight on the use of metaphors and why we should be mindful of their use and what the person means when they're invoking metaphors. 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll be here on Saturday for the compensatory call-in, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We'll catch up on what has gone down the last 7 days. It has been a lot. We'll certainly deal with the situation up at the University of Hartford, the dorm situation. I'm sure we'll have more commentary on the firefighters down in Florida. Lots to discuss from the past 7 days. Sunday we'll be here. John Patash, this was a reschedule. He was supposed to be with us Sunday. He was supposed to be with us past Sunday, but he'll be with us the coming Sunday, November 5th, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll be on the next 3 days, and we even had another reschedule. Robin Maynard, she'll be here on Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. She was supposed to be with us this past Tuesday. We rescheduled that one as well. We could not, apparently, our arms were too short to box with candy corn and the Halloween holiday. Woo! Mr. Steele, did you have time? Are you able to comment before we wrap things up? Or are you still indisposed? Might still be taking a little time. For folks who dialed in, thanks everyone for sharing. I'll share again or ask again, I reckon. If you could give us updates, I always appreciate that. Just getting an opportunity to hear if you use any of the suggestions that you get on the program, or if you use your brain computer and come up with your own strategies to solve your problems, just let us know. This is what you did. The person, just using for an example, he calling me a player. This is what I did. To try to address that issue and what happened, because we are still learning and trying to improve. And I think it helps us to be able to hear, okay, I tried this out. This worked. I think that can be very, very helpful for other non-white listeners to be able to pick out those patterns and to see, yes, there are specific things that you can do and say to help solve some of these problems. Take notes, definitely.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. I just wanted to quick. I've been experimenting with different avenues to find employment, and just different methods of finding employment. And one area that I think some victims may not have explored are utilizing groups that correspond to your interests and your specified geography to look for opportunities for employment. I stumbled upon a really good opportunity that was introduced to me in a group that was local to Los Angeles and was within a field that I was interested in getting into. And, I just recently started with that opportunity, and, it's been a breeze it's been relatively easy-going compared to other opportunities that I've pursued in the past. So, I think that's just something that, victims might explore. Searching for groups in your geography that correspond with interests that you have, or I guess talents or arts that you want to pursue. So there's groups for anything that you can think of, and the bigger your metropolitan area or geography, or the more densely populated it is, then the more groups that are going to be centered in that location, and the more opportunities that you can take a look at. And I will go ahead and mute my line at this time. Thank you so much.
Appreciate that, Mr. Steele. Appreciate everyone who dialed in to participate, listeners as well, live and archived. I hope the broadcast has been worthy of your time and energy. I will again recommend strongly, now that we're in the holiday season, sobriety would be best under conditions of white supremacy. There is a lot of evidence that racists, they have exploited non-white people, black people in particular, who are under the influence, intoxicated, can't make the best decisions. Lots of evidence that they have terrorized and abused a lot of folks in that condition. That is one thing that we could do, and would even be a form of counter-racist economics in not giving race soldiers our loot for alcohol and other poisons, cigarettes included, toxins. That would be fantastic. I think Dr. Welsing, since her name has been invoked repeatedly, I am sure she would strongly endorse us being sober, taking phenomenal care of our brain computers so we can crank out solutions to the problem: racist man, racist woman, racist child. With that, a liberating black people's prayer for justice and peace. Thou who art blacker than 1,000,000,000,000 midnights, whose eyes shine brighter than 1,000,000,000 suns, thou whose hair doth coil tighter than 1,000,000 springs, radiating all energy throughout the universe, we beseech thee, one and only one, to give us total strength to carry out thy will for the universe, to establish justice on planet Earth and live in peace. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Context of White Supremacy signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.